I played 100 Days of Dinkum. Again. It's been over 2 years since we last played this absolute gem of a game, and since then it's received a number of huge updates with lots of new content added, and some changes to the game too. I wasn't sure at first if we'd do this as a continuation of our old island, Bush Lagoon, or if I should start a new one, so I put it out to a poll, and it looks like we're going to be starting afresh. This way, we can see at what point any new items or NPCs enter our lives. I didn't rewatch the old videos before I started this one, so it's going to be interesting essentially relearning some parts of the game, but I think that's going to make for a super fun time watching me screw things up every now and again. We're also playing a full year, by the way. That's 112 days, so let's see just how much we can accomplish in our first year. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling. It's time to start another new life on the island of Sprout Shores. After spending a miserable lifetime in a very cold and drab South City, I was craving some change. The grass is always greener, as they say. Well, maybe in a place that actually has grass. That might be a good start. There was this ad posted by someone called Fletch, and I felt it was really calling out to me. Clearly, a literal sign I should abandon this old life and start again on Sprout Shores. I really hope there's grass. Let's be honest, none of this seems safe. We're relocating with a complete stranger to somewhere I've never heard of with no belongings, and flying on an airship in a snowstorm. What could possibly go wrong? Nothing, it seems, because we landed in one piece. And there was grass. Chatty old Fletch seems nice enough, and stepping outside into the island's warmth, I just knew this was the right call. I suppose if there's one thing about South City though, the self-driving airship is kinda cool. No going back now. I got a base tent to set up in our new town and a map of the island here, and this is what we're looking like this time. If you didn't know, these islands are randomly generated to some extent, but the biomes tend to be in similar locations, so now I just gotta pick a place to set ourselves up, and I thought this mini island here would make the perfect home. I plopped down the base tent, then was joined by Fletch, receiving her seal of approval, then set up my own home not too far away. 2 people won't make a town though, we need more residents. To encourage people to visit, we added a campsite, which will be right next door to the base tent for ease. Apparently, my get up and go adventuring attitude reminded Fletch of her father, so she handed me down his adventurer journal. Already trusted with a family heirloom. In this journal are milestones and challenges that we can complete to earn permit points, but more on those later. For now, I had to forage us some food, and we had some bush limes nearby. Hopefully we won't just be living off limes in the near future, but for now, they'll do. We can cook them too, and for that, we'll need a campfire. I had to explore across the water to pick up some wood from the ground, but it wasn't too long before I had the materials to get that fire going and roasted up some fruit. For crafting the campfire, I was rewarded with a bug net, and if you watched my previous videos, you know how much I loved bug catching in Dinkum, so I took some time to frolic in the grass and catch my first few bugs. Then headed to bed to get some rest after such a big day. The campsite already attracted its first visitor on day 2. It's John, of John's Goods, and it's my job today to try and make him feel welcome enough to move here permanently and open a proper shop. Gaining friendship is a way to do this, and today he's asking me to catch a cicada, but before doing that for him, I decided to sell off all the bugs I was carrying, knowing I'd be able to catch these again pretty easily. I'm gonna need the dinks, that's the currency by the way, for a whole variety of things. I said good morning to Fletch as I passed her tent, and it was at this point she told me about her licenses on offer. This is what we're going to need to spend our permit points on, and let me tell you, there are loads of them. They look innocent here with their 250 cost, but later on we'll need to rack up thousands of points. Being the loot goblin that I am, my first license was the mining one, and that's all I can afford for now. I did have another task added to my list before leaving this tent. I need to buy a table saw and prep for crafting and building, well, many things, and she gave me half the money towards it, given it'll benefit our new town. I had more than enough to afford it, my reward for which was a break. This was the perfect opportunity to head out for some bug catching, including that cicada for John. I handed it over back at his tent, earning some permit points which we get for every quest, and I got a piece of furniture too. I got even more permit points from the journal, which meant I now had enough to unlock the excavation license. My break was now over, with Fletch asking me to make a furnace to smelt ores with, but I'll handle that a little bit later, opting for more bug catching for a while instead. Can you tell how much I've missed this? I foraged some other stuff whilst I was out there too, which I sold to John to fund my shovel and pickaxe. I took my pickaxe for a test run to get some tin ore, and smashed through these barrels which contain all sorts of treasure. Then, back at home, I put my shovel to work planting some more fruit trees for a daily permit point task. When I went to sell off some extra bugs to John, he told me he wants to join us here permanently, so Fletch should have a shop deed waiting for us. I sold another 5 grand worth of stuff to him before sprinting over to Fletch to get the logging license, but she didn't even let me ask about the shop deed while still working on the furnace for her. I need to focus on the mining again. Kinda hard with the wildlife attacking me, but I did my best here. Unfortunately though, when I brought the necessary materials to Fletch, she was now out of her tent for the day. Sure, I can craft the furnace, but now this means I've missed my chance to get my hands on the shop deed for today. It's not like I have nothing to do though. I got my first tin bar smelting in my brand new furnace, and since this was still for an intro task for Fletch, I was able to still buy licenses from her, even though she's technically closed. I picked the hunting license next after that run-in with the wary moo earlier, and you're not gonna believe this, but I also got the fishing license with my leftover points. Gotta fill the future museum somehow. By the time I picked those out, my tin bar was done, and Fletch was very pleased with my handiwork. Noticing my pockets filling up, she gave me the blueprint for a crate to store all of my loot. She knows me so well already, and even though she wanted to keep my tin bar, she did give me this burger in return. It's a really good one, so I'll save it until the time is right. For the evening, I just worked on materials by gathering more ore to smelt and turning my logs into planks. This busy day meant gaining several levels across multiple skills. Then with John still in town for day 3, I started my day with another sale before heading next door to the base tent to ask Fletch for the available deeds. 2 of these I recognised, but I think the wish fountain is new to me. I'll check it out another day. All I care about right now is that shop deed. It's going to be our first proper building, but also our first dose of town debt. 75 grand. Especially with this shop, we gotta spend money to make money, so let's get John set up for good here. I'm gonna need more planks to build it with, so I bought an axe from John, and had that lot burger for breakfast to energise me for all the manual labour I needed to do, but I'm definitely chopping the wrong type of tree here for the building, which is gonna be next to the base tent. Here's the list of materials the shop will need, and in gathering them, I hit some new milestones, raising my permit point balance. I did pick myself up a fishing rod that afternoon, no point having the license without the tool for it. Then I got a crate ready to store my stuff I didn't want to carry, but I can't put bugs in here ready for the museum, and I forgot how to store these outside of my pockets. You can just place them like furniture. Gonna be a long time till I remember this. I got some more fruit trees planted close to home, then got back to gathering materials so I could complete the donations a couple of hours later. Construction will begin tomorrow. That left plenty of time for my first go at fishing. Okay, not really my first, but it has been over 2 years, and of course, I didn't remember how this works. I did figure it out eventually, and it all came floating back. So here's my first fish, a mangrove jack. Oh good grief, I did not intend to write poetry about fishing, what is happening? The main reason I was really fishing was for a carp for John. I didn't manage to find it, but I did catch the fly for Fletch, and as a thank you, I got a meat pie. Where is she getting all this cooked food? Anyway, that carp, I did keep trying all evening with no luck, which means failing that quest for this day. At least we got a huge skill gain. I'll probably stop mentioning these now unless they actually mean something. I began day 4 with another sale to John of the prior day's bugs and fish. At 27 grand, this was our best haul yet, and not only that, I got 8 prize tickets for selling 8 fish during the John's Goods anniversary event. This was a limited time event offering some special clothing and decorative pieces, and there are some really cool things in here, like I just had to have this flower crown, and this fairy light wall. Those were my definite favourites, and I think those lights will go great next to my tent. Being as busy as I've been, I've racked up quite a few permit points, so here I grabbed the tool belt license for an extra hotbar slot, and a cargo license for some extra pocket slots. Before heading out, I crafted a spear to defend myself with, then ran around barefoot in the rain for some bug catching where I got my first queen bee, and I wasn't going to ignore all the loot barrels while I was out there either. The tin ore too. I was mainly looking for a painted lady butterfly for a friendship quest, but I couldn't find it. It wasn't all bad though. I returned with plenty of stuff to sell, and John's friendship quest was just him offering to buy something I already had. Who am I to say no to an easy win like that? I started sort of terraforming pretty early on this island. I like this little ledge here, but I just wanted it 1 tile tall, so I moved anything higher than that to widen the area. With limited tools, right now that means just moving each bit of dirt 1 by 1. It took a while, but now I'd made room for my new storage area. I'm hoping to start off staying some more organised. For the rest of the day, I just chopped wood and sawed planks, and some of those went into making a cooking table the following morning. Energy was turning out to be quite the problem, though this table isn't going to be that much help right now since I don't have the majority of the ingredients. I might manage the fruit salads once I gather enough fruit though. John's new store opened today. It was looking good, loads of new stuff for sale, but I went straight for the stone grinder so I could throw in a shiny stone I found yesterday. Grinding this up will get me some extra ores. For today's license unlock, I wanted the metal detecting one, and I actually went ahead and bought both levels at once. So now, not only can I purchase the tool to find more of those treasures buried beneath the surface, I can also just see some of it with the X marking the spot. I am doing this a little awkwardly to begin with, but I'll eventually find my flow. I grabbed enough fruit for some fruit salad whilst I was out there, but when I went to ask John if he needed help with anything today, he wanted to buy it from me. Fine, you can have it. My afternoon and evening were then for treasure hunting and shell gathering for extra cash. On day 6, I got straight to chopping palm wood because both John and Fletch were both after palm wood planks today. I got a new shirt in return from Fletch, and from John, an overall dress. I think they were trying to say something about my outfit, so I changed. Theodore was visiting today. He's basically our version of Blathers if you couldn't tell by his tent. Looks like I didn't even have to do anything to earn his agreement to build a museum on Sprout Shores. He already wanted to be here, but unfortunately, I can't get the museum built till we're clear of the town debt from John's shop. Some small donations have already been made by others, but I still have a long way to go, so I better get on with selling stuff. I grabbed a few more bugs and stuff towards this, and some fish too, but I did make sure to save some for Theodore, who was already accepting donations. The best part of this is that each donation nets us with 100 permit points, so there's plenty of incentive to complete the collections. Theodore himself was after a river bass for his own personal use, and in return, I got a sizable contribution to the town debt. Between that and some stuff I sold, I had enough to pay it all off, and I gained enough prize tickets to trade for a statue for the town. It can watch over our villagers on the bench here. I did get that debt cleared, but I dilly-dallied just enough for Fletch to have left again for the day, so no museum build for us just yet. Instead, I whipped up more fruit salads and cooked up some drumsticks from the local turkeys to give me the energy recovery for chopping more wood. I don't need this hardwood just yet, but I wanted to clear most of the town island area in prep for future buildings, and then I went back to painstakingly moving dirt again to expand the overall area of this place. First thing on day 7, I asked Fletch for the museum deed so I can work on the materials. This town pretty much ends up in an endless state of debt because we now have 125 grand's worth after paying off yesterday's balance. I already had a spot in mind for the museum, and whilst waiting for my cement to be made, I wanted to handle John's request for food. This ungrateful so-and-so rejected my perfectly good fruit salad, to the point where it ruined his appetite. If he had dietary preferences, he probably should have told me, but whatever. More for me. I had all the museum materials ready by the late morning, but I still had more to make for Fletcher's palmwood request. I broke my axe in the process. Thankfully, John was selling a replacement, but before breaking that one in, I had a new license to unlock for all my hard work in foraging, so I can upgrade it to a better one. And also, I got the landscaping license for some pathing options. I went out mining for my axe upgrade, amongst other things, and whilst all of that was smelting, I worked on land expansion again into the nighttime. Day 8 brought a new visitor. This is Clover, owning of a clothing shop called Threadspace, but more importantly, another potential townie. I wasn't sure for a minute if I even wanted her here, given that she's asking me to fish, but I do need new clothes, so I should probably help her out. I needed some foot protection, and these yellow shoes caught my eye, and I brought some brown tights to relieve the chub rub I was getting from this dress. But after putting on all of my new stuff, the shoes didn't quite match up what was on the display. I mean, they are called long shoes, so they were right by name, but they didn't look quite this long on the stand. We all know these will just be a constant tripping hazard for this clumsy loot goblin, so I brought the red shoes as well. Not sure about this ensemble as a fit, but it will do for now. Aside from Fletcher's copper bar request, from which I got a coffee table, the 2 other quests on my list were both fishing. From Clover, I got this lifeguard hat, which I won't be wearing, and from John, I got these hilarious googly eyes. I love this item. I asked for the building license next to be able to build bridges, and also for the brewing license to try and boost my income from fruit and stuff. We're gonna need multiple ways to pay off all that town debt, and to buy stuff for myself. The billy can kit wasn't too difficult to make, and it will keep my other campfire company. I dumped in 10 bush limes for my first jar of jam, but ideally I'll have more than 1 billy can on the go, so off I went to find more ores. To keep busy whilst that was smelting, I turned my attention to the mangrove trees bordering the main town island. These aren't really the look I was going for. I still haven't upgraded my axe though, so I definitely didn't get through them all tonight. The museum was fully built on day 9, and I wanted to welcome Theodore to Sprout Shores with a plethora of creatures to donate. That's 11 of them for 1100 permit points. I was excited to see the camera for sale, but I couldn't yet afford it. I did have some stuff I could sell to John, but I put that camera purchase off for now. This was one of the excitingly overwhelming things in Dinkum. There's so many possibilities of what we can do next. It's so hard to decide which ones to do first, though it's not uncommon for me to constantly change my mind. Or maybe that's just my ADHD. Either way, it's a pattern here. Realising I still haven't upgraded my axe, I ran off for a copper hunt. Until my pickaxe broke, that is. But hey, breaking a tool was a journal quest for today. I caught a few more bugs, then finally got in the axe upgrade, and from that decent amount of fishing the other day, I was able to get hold of the next fishing license. Yes, I'm hearing all the jokes now about how much I just love fishing, but actually, prioritising getting these upgrades just means I can have an easier time catching fish. It was nice feeling the benefits of the stronger axe too. I turned all that bottle wood into hardwood planks so I could craft my first hardwood bridge. There are some other types of bridge you can make, but the hardwood is definitely my favourite, and I made some paths here to go with it. I bridged over the water that I tend to cross the most often, as I do plan to have a few buildings over here too. I got a couple of villager quests done just after that, and look how much Theodore just paid for a fly. That went towards a couple more tools. Then I stepped outside to get those paths done, though there's not much to show for it after crafting so few of them. In the spirit of not focusing on one task at once, I enjoyed another afternoon of foraging and bug catching, but I did have a near miss with this croco here because I hadn't eaten any food that would give me health regen. I don't recommend being stuck with the low health blips like I was. Thankfully, I had what was left of a Werimu that wasn't quite so lucky. I also made a few fruit salads, but I didn't eat anything for now, because I had a feeling a good night's sleep would refresh me. It very much did, and in even more good news, we have a brand new visitor for day 10. This is Franklin, inventor of all sorts of cool gadgets. Annoyingly, convincing him to stay was going to be a bit harder because he was asking me for a mushroom soup that I simply could not source, but I accepted it anyway just in case someone else happens to hand me one later. He also sells crafting blueprints, and I tended to buy these regardless of whether or not I thought I'd use them, just for collection purposes. I sold yesterday's goodies to John for 23 grand, but the real money today was going to come from Franklin. I've been hoarding my shiny discs, remembering their purpose from Bush Lagoon. Not only can Franklin come up with lots of useful contraptions from the info on these discs, but he was willing to pay me handsomely for them. For those 6 discs, I got 53 grand, a good chunk off that debt. Having a look at what Franklin can make at the moment, most of it was quite expensive. I didn't have the licenses for some of it either, so I may not commission anything for quite some time. I made my main task today digging up more shiny discs for Franklin. I've got to take full advantage whilst he's still in town, given that we've got no idea when his next visit will be, and I returned to him with 4 discs for another 35 grand. I would have stayed out and gotten more, but I didn't want to come back to a vacant tent and miss my chance. I added to my balance by selling some extra loot to John, and all of this was more than enough to clear the debt from the museum. I mined for the evening, knowing there'll always be some other project that needs this, though I couldn't resist a bug catching break, and that's when I found my first teleport tower. To restore these, I need some of the treasure items I've been finding, including shiny discs unfortunately. I made sure to track that list because I was never going to remember it all, and when I returned home to smelt the day's ores, I checked my storage to find I didn't have enough of some of the stuff. I bet I sold some of it at some point. I'm sure I'll find more. The list seemed to have disappeared again after reopening my game on day 11, and because it was also the next real life day, I forgot what it was that I was doing, so here I am just gathering wood and getting up to my usual other activities. I had to come and sell some stuff before I was really ready because my pockets were overflowing. I saved a few things thinking I'd need them for museum donations, but I only needed one of them. Theodore was happy to buy the extra cicada at quite the premium though. To curb my pocket-sized frustration, I asked Fletch for the next cargo license, but the final one at 6,000 points might take a little while, so for today I got my hands on the first farming license, in addition to the second building license to access some windmills to speed up certain machines. I thought it would be time for the next building project. I don't remember the bandstand being a thing when I played last, so I chose that. Plus, it has a much more modest level of debt. In fact, I paid off the 25 grand immediately, so I could also pick up the bulletin board. This one's only 10 grand, so it shouldn't be long till I can cover it. I got the bandstand plot situated and ready for its materials, but it was nice that the bulletin board didn't seem to need any extra build time. This one's important because it's a source for extra different types of quests, which you'll see as we pass through this year. It also has a calendar showing birthdays and events. I took some of the afternoon depositing stuff for the bandstand, then I smashed some rocks near town to top up on stone, and sold enough bugs and fruit to John to pay off the bulletin board. I handled a request for John who was after some logs. For 3 of them, he more than covered the debt. I probably could have waited for some others to start contributing for a discount, but I wanted to clear this small balance this time, so I'm ready for whenever the next opportunity for town expansion arrives. I hang out by the fire through sunset for some cooking, then during my evening of general resource gathering, I uncovered a fossil in a rock. I'll have to wait till the morning to sell it though. I ran straight for the bulletin board when I woke up in the morning to check out the extra quests. Not impressed that they were both clothing trades, but I accepted them anyway. I had an even more important one for today's visitor though. Clover was after some croco meat. A tall order, gotta put myself in danger to convince her to stay it seems. That's not all she'll need. I also bought some shoes and a hat from her because she needs to see this location as profitable too. I traded for Fletcher's eye patch even if I won't wear it. I'm just after the friendship and the permit points which went towards the next newly available mining license thanks to all the stone and ore I've been gathering. John's shop was open by this point, so I carried the fossil inside and threw it on the scale. This is what we can do with some of the larger items we find, and many of them fetch a pretty penny. I used those funds to purchase a wheelbarrow to assist with all the dirt I want to move, and traded some old clothing to John for a white bow. As cute as this hair bow is, I think I still prefer the flower crown, at least for now. I felt I put off the hunting as much as I could by that point, and went out to locate a local croco. Given that my last run-in with one of these left me on the brink of death, I wasn't overly confident in how this was going to go. That being said, I was careful about timing the prods of my spear and successfully took it down. I didn't go home without collecting any nearby treasure, and when I did return, I got a chunk of that meat on the campfire for Clover so I could hand it over to her shortly after. I got a meat pie as a thanks. This better food was actually worth it, but it wasn't enough to convince her to stay on this occasion. With no clothing store on the cards for today, I wanted to look at the remaining deed on Fletcher's list, the Wish Fountain. This is another new to me structure, but I didn't go for it this time because I wasn't confident I'd find all the pearls as fast as I'd like. I made my first copper pickaxe in the tent, then spent the rest of this day adjusting the terrain with the help of my wheelbarrow, continuing the work of widening the area over here. Day 13 I wanted to explore more of the general area, going north this time, picking up any ore and stuff I found along the way. It was lovely cooling off in the water diving for aquatic critters. The museum is after these too, by the way, and there was plenty of loot to dig up at the beach. I came across the northern teleport tower that afternoon. I think it needs the exact same parts to fix as the eastern one we found before, but I'll come back to this another day. I eventually made my way round to the western one too, where I dumped in a portion of the parts, mainly to free up pocket space. I have been marking these on the map as well. We know I just won't remember where they are. I was mainly out this way to grab some bottle brushes for a daily task, and once that was done, I started heading in the direction of home where I came across this mysterious person. A Townco agent. Do any of you recognise where they're from? This agent is a long way from Go-Go Town, don't you think? They won't be staying, but they can craft some items from Go-Go Town for us. I don't have any of the materials, so I just had to hope they were going to come back another day, because I definitely want to get my hands on some of it. Back in town, I planted a couple of bottle brush seeds, so I won't have to travel quite so far for them in the future. Then I got some last minute villager tasks done before bed. There was a new tent on the island on day 14. Rain, the gardener, source of our farming needs. She was after a watermelon today. Not sure where she expected me to get this from, so I turned it down. I spent quite a bit of money here on the necessary tools, and both for the season offer, though I didn't get those planted till I donated a whole bunch of new stuff to the museum, knowing there'll be loads of permit points up for grabs. It was then over to John's shop to spend almost all of my money on the machine manual, which I'll be honest, I barely used, but at least I made most of the money back right after. Hoping for more, I found 2 new requests on the bulletin board, both large shipments of fruit, and obviously whilst I was out gathering it, I couldn't help netting any bugs I came across. I stuffed my pockets full with fruit and loot, then came home to get them cooking. I multitasked between that and finishing townie quests, but I did craft a couple more campfires to speed up the process. It took a while, but the apples finished cooking, so I brought them over to Theodore for his shipment, but for some reason he wasn't seeing that I completed it. Turns out I mixed up the 2 requests. It's raw apples and cooked bananas, so now I don't have enough apples anymore. I took quite a trek to track down more apples, but it was all worth it for the 10 grand and some permit points. The cooked bananas were for him too, and after a couple of hours by the campfire, I ticked another big task off my list, meaning I could go to bed happy. I put my photography skills to the test on this jackaroo the next day. I wouldn't exactly say I have any skill here, but Fletch was after one of these photos, so hopefully they're good enough. Having forgotten to plant my crops yesterday, I wanted to handle that whilst it was raining so the ground could be watered for me. It slipped my mind at this point that watering actually contributes to the farming level, but there's going to be plenty of chance for that grind. I popped to see Fletch to ask for the deep mining license. Oh, how I've missed that place. Then I handed over my best jackaroo photo and accepted my payment in return. Of course I didn't leave without taking the mine deed with me. It's a pricey one, but believe me when I say this is more than worth it. I plopped this one down in the deserty area across the bridge, and thankfully I had enough materials to hand it in by lunchtime. There's plenty of time left today to help the residents, and I love it when the requests line up like this. I got a hat as a reward from John, then when I asked Theodore what he needed today, he simply wanted to buy it off me. Easy win. Today it was time to expand my storage a little, then like many evenings, I went back to changing the terrain to how I want it, filling my wheelbarrow from here to make it level with the bridge, then using that dirt to keep expanding this section I've been working on. That was until I realised the subtle difference in the dirt I was adding. Obviously it was sand instead, I was taking it from the deserty area after all. The difference was going to bother me, so I put it all back in the wheelbarrow and disposed of it in the water. I just moved some of the rest of the sand aside instead, then planted a couple more fruit trees. Franklin was here on day 16, I had another 4 discs for him in an effort to chip away at the debt. I had to give some money back to him in exchange for his orange sneakers, but his friendship will be priceless. Seeing that I was a long way off the 250 grand in town donations, I allowed myself to spend some dinks on a mine pass. I won't be going down there today, but it's nice to have some in storage for when the occasion arises, plus it was pretty much paid for with my apparent snack delivery service between both John and Theodore. With the deep mine still under construction, I mined on the surface instead and hunted for those all-important shiny discs, returning to Franklin with 5 more of them. Give me those dings. It wasn't until almost evening that I remembered to water my crops, but I noticed that one of them is missing, munched by the wildlife, and it would be just my luck that it started raining shortly after I finished watering. Oh well, at least I got the farming XP. I switched things up that evening with some fishing. The levels would be nice, but I was also looking for some new stuff for the museum. It was obviously only a matter of time for me to get withdrawals from bug catching though. On day 17 I knocked 80 grand off the town debt and bought a couple more licenses from Fletch. The level 2 hunting license for some stronger weapons, and the tool belt license for an additional hotbar slot. I had 3 new creatures from last night to donate to the museum, and I'm glad I chatted to Theodore before leaving the museum because he wanted to buy one of my extra fish off me for a much higher price. I bought another pickaxe from the shop and sold the rest of my odds and ends whilst I was there. Then after crafting some better tools and weapons, as well as a whole load of torches, I was feeling ready to take my first trip down to the deep mines. I was so close to using up that pass when I realised I forgot my keys. If you don't recall, or you haven't seen this game before, you'll see why these are important shortly. It was nice to be back in these dark depths, though I was quickly refamiliarised with how bothersome these bats are. I wasn't going to let them stop me gathering what I came for, like this iron ore, and don't even get me started on the glowing crocs and the bush devils down here. I lost so much time just trying to stay alive. I came across my first treasure room a few hours later, and this is what the keys will be for. In this level of the mines, you need 2 of them to access the loot inside, and I very much appreciated the permit points for this. But inside my very first chest, I found a hang glider, a doggo collar, a battery, some paint, and a guitar. As you can see, some really nice valuables and useful items to be found. This loot goblin was over the moon. And yes, I took the chest with me too, it's free storage. I had to fight a croc to safely access the next loot room, and here's a quick look at what's inside. By the next one, I was really struggling for pocket space, so I had to start making the dreaded decisions as to what to leave behind. I thought it was best to call it a day at this point, though I couldn't resist salvaging parts from this wrecked car right next to the elevator on my way out. That was a successful first trip, and I'll even get a bit more ore from the handful of shiny stones I can run through the crusher. I got 7 levels in hunting and 4 levels in mining from all of that, enough for the next hunting license to become available the next morning. I greeted Rain in her tent whilst my ores were smelting. She was after 6 gum logs, a request I can actually fulfill, and whilst I was in there, I bought my first sugarcane seeds. I wanted to check with Fletch about that next hunting license, but first I was distracted by this commerce license, which will help me earn even more dinks. At 750 points, I'd be a fool to pass up this 5% boost. The next one is 3000 though, same as the next hunting license. See what I mean? We're gonna need so many permit points. My next stop was John's to buy a better furnace, since my handmade one isn't capable of smelting iron. As pricey as they are, they're also much quicker. The statue I found yesterday, I decided I'd like to overlook the town to make use of this raised area here. Then I handed the logs over to Rain, who shared a sailboat blueprint in return. Not gonna lie, I never made this. Rain wasn't offering to move here yet, so I bought some more sugarcane seeds, being unsure as to when she might return next. I didn't even know this, but when checking with everyone for their daily tasks, I found out it was Theodore's birthday. On anyone's birthday, you give a gift instead of completing some sort of favour. I do wish I went and got something else from my storage first, but this time I reluctantly parted with my corn, though even not counting the ones from the milestone, you do still get the permit points for it. For today's out-of-town adventures, I made sure to bring my hang glider for a test drive. It definitely feels much faster than just travelling on foot, so from now on, think of this thing as just an extension of my person. I'm almost never without it now. I fished in the ocean for some new stuff before attempting to take out this shark here, since you can't just use the rod on these, but once its health gets low enough, it starts to retreat. You can't use your tools while swimming, and unfortunately, it went off for backup. I didn't feel like becoming their dinner, so I took myself back to town to set up a dump chest for items I want to keep aside to sell to John whenever his store is closed. Then I got a cooked apple in me, sick of being badgered about my own low health. I cooked up some meat on a stick for a better solution to that for future, whilst roasting up some croco meat from the mines, though I wasn't really intending to roast myself in the process. It was funny finding out that the villagers simply can't ignore you being on fire though. I just wanted to trade for some clothing. I don't really want that fake beard, but I will do all of these types of requests for friendship and permit points. Once I felt sufficiently healed, I went back to fishing for the rest of the night. I awoke on day 19 to witness theft of another one of my crops. I didn't kill that jackaroo, but I did prod it with my spear to show it I mean business, then ran off to Fletch to buy the next landscaping permit to unlock a load of fence recipes. Of what I had available, the gumwood fences were my favourite, so I made a bunch of those and set up a perimeter to keep the hungry animals out. With these fences, for the most part, I'm gonna do my best to avoid just building everything as a rectangle. I worked for a while on bulletin board and daily villager requests, It's always nice when you already happen to have what they're asking for. Then I filled up my newly protected crop area with the stored up sugarcane seeds. As tedious as watering can be, I want the gain in farming levels to unlock sprinklers. That was just in time to be mocked by this game yet again as the rain came down shortly after. Really? What made me feel better was some general resource gathering. When I knocked a beehive out of a tree, it actually fell in the river here. Not that John seemed to care when I sold it to him. There's some extra dinks and some all important permit points. It was kinda nice just taking some time to stock up on building materials, so I could do things like add steps and paths around town. I did start off with most of the paths in a straight line, till I reminded myself I was wanting to avoid that look this time, so I tore a lot of it up and went for a bit more of a wiggly look, which took more brain power than I'd like to admit. That project continued a little into the next day, making some small adjustments along the way, and I didn't forget about the day's visitor, which was Clover in need of some breakfast. Even though she seemed happy with the fruit salad I made her, she also just gave it right back? Not sure what to make of that response, but moving on, I bought a few of the clothing pieces she had on sale. I'm just ready for a new outfit, and I am all about this dino shirt. I'm not sure how this outfit works with a flower crown, but what do I know about fashion? I'm keeping it. After tending to my crops, I went on search of more ores. Then asked Fletch for the next logging license earned from all those logs we've chopped. For now, that one is max level, and I can upgrade my axe to a nice strong iron one. Paired with a fruit salad, it made quick work of the nearby palm trees, though the food buff did run out before I switched over to clearing these mangrove trees. Even with this iron axe, they do take quite a bit of hitting. I don't want these growing back, and I do find the mud quite unsightly, so I used a bit of normal dirt to convert each tile. A little bit time consuming, but kinda therapeutic, at least for me. That bit of mining we did meant there was a new mining license available on day 21, but I don't have anywhere near enough permit points for it just yet. That was going to take some time to work on, but harvesting my first crops definitely gave me a little push. I kept some to cook with, but sold many of them off for the dinks and another journal milestone. Then continuing that spirit, I brought the villagers the items they requested, including gathering a big banana shipment for Fletch. I meant the shipment was big, not the bananas. They're just your average bananas. My afternoon and evening was for mining and treasure hunting, but my main goal was to try and get enough parts to repair the West Teller Tower. I got close, but noticing it was late, I was going to have to save the rest for later. We got a brand new visitor on day 22, and I mean new. I hadn't met Max in my last playthrough, I don't think. This is Theodore's brother, and he'll come once in spring and once in winter to host a fishing contest during the migration of the barracuda here. They're usually a night fish, but today they'll be out for the whole day. To win the fishing competition, we need to catch as many barracuda as possible, but we have to return to the tent by 4 PM to record our score for it to count. I bought myself the competition fishing rod, hoping it might be better than mine, then sprinted straight off to the beach to catch those fish. Problem is, I didn't know what the barracuda looked like, nor did I know that the contest actually starts at 9 AM. Maybe it's a good thing I hadn't caught any yet. Even this is just a blue spot flathead. I also got distracted by my first pearl, and running up and down the beach, I didn't get my first barracuda on the line for a good couple of hours. They're not exactly an easy catch either. Most of the ones I found ended up being unreachable, then with less than an hour to go, I had to panic run and glide back to town to make sure I could submit my score in time. I only caught 3, and I still had half an hour to spare, so maybe I should have held on a little bit longer, because somehow, in that time, John managed to reel in 2 more barracuda. He has to be cheating, but whatever. We're the only 2 contestants, so I'll still be getting a prize in the mail tomorrow. One of the better parts of Max's visit is that he'll buy any fish from you at 2.5 times their normal price. I had to save one of the barracuda for the museum, but they're worth many dinks, and even the handful of fish I brought to him sold for nearly 77 grand. That, along with the milestone it caused us to hit, were the real wins today, and I could clear the remaining town debt. It was then back to fishing. I thought I should take advantage of the barracuda's extended appearance. I was hoping to sell them to Max, but he left his tent by the time I made it back to town. I could have called it a day there, but instead, I went for a late night trip to that West Teller Tower with some extra parts from home so I could fix it, even if it's still useless for now until we fix another one. On day 23, I had a new journal milestone reached for getting a podium spot in yesterday's fishing competition. Another 500 permit points was the perfect prize for me, which I was way more excited about than the silver fish trophy I opened in the mail. The bulletin board displayed its first animal capture award. If I bring the right animal to a delivery point, I'll get loads of extra dinks. I couldn't ignore a reward like that, so I hurried over to the base tent to pick up both of the trapping licenses here. If I'm going to trap some animals, I might as well use a higher quality trap. The animal collection point is going just over the bridge opposite the mine elevator, then I just walked right up to a frilly, who seemed to have glitched things a bit. The capture did seem to count, but clearly it broke free. It didn't take me long to get it back in the trap, where it actually went on its way this time. That was weird. Let's move on. John was now open for business for the week, so I bought a few spare tools and sold all the extra fish from yesterday for a decent profit. Then I caught a bunch of bugs for the day's villager requests. With the town currently debt-free, I thought now might be a good time to upgrade my house into an actual solid building. This works a bit differently, in that you need the entire fee up front, so I took the opportunity whilst I had more than the 95 grand. The first stage only needs some simple materials too. I'm starting to notice a pattern here, because this became another day I ended up closing out by grabbing what I needed to then work on decorating the town. Still got a ways to go with these paths, and wiping most of the area clean of mangrove trees. My house was constructed overnight, and this is how I awoke on day 24. What on earth happened here? Kinda unsettling with the sleeping bag just being in the middle of the room like that as well. I was just glad my tent era was over. I have a house now, or perhaps it's a shed. Still, it's an improvement. In the mail today, there were 4 letters from the Animal Research Centre. Usually you get 1 letter for returning the trap, but the extras here confirmed that it did think I delivered 2 frillies instead of 1. Notice how the money is a lot lower than the 50 grand on the bulletin board? Yeah, that's because it's after a blooming frilly. We haven't even come across these yet, and it meant no bonus dinks for me. I think this is also the only time I even bothered with the animal trapping this year too. I just enjoy other activities way more. Franklin more than paid for my house in exchange for the 12 shiny discs I'd amassed, and his friendship task today was nice and easy, just buying the 5 meat sticks I had on me. He still didn't want to move in, so I made sure to get an order in of a repair table. Now that I was getting some better tools and weapons, I wanted to try and save myself from constantly making and breaking them. I'll get it in the mail tomorrow. I then got to work on everyone else's daily quests, with my last meat on a stick going to John for his lunch. And from him, I got a decorative stack of papers which I thought would look good as if it was like a delivery of newspaper outside his shop. Don't worry, it's a special magic paper that won't get soggy in the rain or blow away in the wind. That afternoon, I flew around on my glider and repaired the North Teller Tower. That's the nearest one to town, so now I have a quick way to get to the west of Sprout Shores. I collected bottle brushes out there for a shipment quest. I managed to track down the South Tower where I deposited any parts I had, but I was short 5 bright wires, so I dropped everything I was doing and pulled out my metal detector. I was determined to get it done before the day's end, and it really did take into the night time to find all those wires. But as a bonus, I also dug up an amber chunk. I carried it, along with the required wires, to the tower and got it repaired. Thankfully, the amber chunk could come with me through the Teller Tower to the one that was closer to home. I kept this thing inside my house as I slept. It's too valuable to be left unattended. On day 25 I received my new repair table in the mail and got it situated. We'll look at it another time, because all I could think about was watering my crops and bringing the amber chunk to the shop to sell. John was so excited he had to come out from behind the counter to tell me it's worth 65,000 dinks, plus I got some permit points with it. I really hope we find more of these. That journal milestone meant I now had enough permit points for the last mining license. That iron pickaxe will be a much needed upgrade. I was growing tired of waiting hungrily by my campfire for my food to cook, so this was the best time for me to invest in my first barbecue. This thing cooks literally at double the speed. Whilst out mining and treasure hunting, I came across the town co-agent again. This time I had a better browse of the available craftables, thinking I should have some more of the crafting materials by now. I popped home to load up on various items, then followed the sound of the phone to get my hands on some Go-Go Town goodies. I went for the Go-Go clock, some lanterns, a trinket, and the phone booth. I hadn't fully decided on the final placing for these things, but for now I thought the clock would go well with the bulletin board, along with the phone booth. The lanterns will be just outside the base tent, and the trinket will go outdoor on this table here. Continuing with working on my surroundings, I ended my day clearing more of the mangrove trees and converting the mud to dirt to stop them growing back. Day 26 was a rainy one, with both the weather and the person visiting us. I was disappointed that she was asking me to fish again, but I need her to move here, so I must oblige. On the bright side, she brought some new seeds with her. The rice is great because it can grow all year and be planted in shallow water, but the watermelons, 2 days before they're out of season, not entirely sure why she brought these. I say as I purchase some, maybe for next year? I ignored everything else to catch that fish for her in exchange for some spag bol, but more importantly, that was enough for her to have spoken to Fletch about making the plant shop deed available. It's gonna put the town in another 200 grand of debt, but given that the crops are a great source of income, it's more than worth it. I'm going to be utilising this place a lot, so it's going closer to my house, and I wasted no time in scrambling the materials together to make sure rain could be settled in by the start of the new season. I got a lot of the rice planted in a shallow bit close to home, before wanting to catch a few bugs, except I got distracted by this adorable rainbow. I enjoyed the view for a bit, then crafted another copper spear ready for battle with this alpha jackaroo. This thing is much bigger and badder than your average jackaroo, and it's my job to keep my residents safe from this aggressive beast. It took me a while to chip away at its health, whilst taking a bit of a beating myself. But I just about made it in one piece. A very battered and bruised piece, but I still fared better than the jackaroo. That prime meat, by the way, an awesome drop. Once cooked up, it's good for both eating and selling, but you'll only see an alpha when you're lucky enough to get a bulletin board quest for it. This one belonged to Theodore, who gave me a lovely 18 grand bounty, which I then used for the purchase of the tripod camera. I don't remember the tripod being a thing a couple of years ago, so I couldn't wait to test it out. Gotta let out my inner vlogger. Not much else to report for the evening, just some smelting and tree chopping, though I did manage to get some more paths down just before bed. On day 27, I wanted to place another hardwood bridge to the north this time, but the river was too wide for it, so I guess my job of expanding this section is still not completed. I didn't have another place to take dirt from anymore, so I just dug a hole here because once you reach a certain depth, the hole stops getting deeper. This essentially makes it infinite dirt, perfect for tasks like this one. I noticed something new swimming in the water, so I tried to catch it with my fishing rod, but when it ignored my bobber, I jumped right in the river and made several attempts to just grab it with my bare hands. That was definitely a choice, given that it's highly venomous. Anyway, back to work. I was a bit more satisfied with the land by lunchtime, so I filled up the wheelbarrow one last time to refill the pit with, and just like that, we've got our northern bridge in place. I could then turn my attention to the daily villager requests, and this one right here ate up so much of my day. The redback spider from the desert. Look at the time. The sun was almost setting before I found one of these, and I thought this was my first one, so I stayed out even longer in the hopes of capturing another for the museum. No luck on that front tonight though. In fact, I changed my mind when I got back to town. I flew straight past John, no spider for him. The museum will get this one instead for the betterment of Sprout Shores. Day 28, the last day of spring, and rain has officially moved in. A local moo came to witness her asking me for a butterfly, and it's an extra busy one today because Clover is also in town. Well, her request wasn't really all that bad, she just wanted a bite to eat, so I handed her some spag bowl. Not the most traditional breakfast as far as I'm aware, but she appreciated it nonetheless. After a recent lengthy battle with the alpha jackaroo, I was relieved to find that Fletch had the next hunting license ready for me. I was so tunnel visioned on better weapons that I didn't even notice this other nifty perk that animals have an even higher chance to drop useful items. All I cared about was the Iron Spear blueprint. This isn't like the other tool upgrades where they required the previous weapon with it, so I wanted to try and use up my copper spear first. Taking on 2 crocos at once with no active health recovery? A little ambitious or stupid? You decide. Either way, I couldn't finish the job and had to glide off before I became their afternoon snack. I went home to get some food for myself, some egg fried rice to heal the body and the soul, and to help that healing process along, some treasure hunting on the beach. Gotta keep myself away from the more hazardous wildlife. That meant coming back at the end of this season with all this loot. How could I not be happy? To celebrate the change in season, Fletch sold me her old pirate hat. Perhaps there's more to her story than we realise. I won't be wearing it though, I just thought it was cool to have. Even though my sugarcane was taking up most of my little crop area, I still had some space to prep in advance of autumn crops, but before purchasing any seeds from rain, I wanted to get this alpha bush devil battle done. I had 2 giant drumsticks with me, and I didn't realise until I ate them that they don't provide any health regen. This fire-breathing brute managed to set me alight once or twice, and with a near-lethal chomp, I had to retreat to higher ground, desperately rooting through my pockets for anything that might help. I forgot I had this cheesy spag on me, but my relief was short-lived. It's got one of the lowest rates of healing possible. Wonderful. I just had to wait it out for a few minutes, but I grew impatient. Perhaps I just needed some pressure to go hitless for the rest of the fight. Of course not. It's rough just having to watch myself burn to death. Yep, that's the day over. Turns out death really takes it out of you. I don't even know how I got to my bed here. 30 grand out of pocket I might add. But hey, we get some permit points as a consolation prize. Clover was back in town again, and for 2 gum logs, she gave me a chest of drawers. I've been waiting for one of these, because not only does my house desperately need furnishing, this particular piece is actually functional. So now we have somewhere to store all these clothes that I've accumulated, and there were already enough in here to almost fill it up. The plant shop was opening by the time I got that sorted, and in there I bought some cabbage, wheat and corn seeds. I didn't bother with the tomatoes because we already have a few of those growing from summer. My crop space is still quite small though, so I couldn't plant them all yet. I'll do the rest when we can harvest the sugarcane. I sold a small selection of stuff to John just to make sure I wasn't completely broke when I donated another 90 grand towards the town debt. Then I decided I couldn't wait anymore to plant the crops, so it's time to expand this area a little. I still haven't given myself that much room, but I guess it's still almost double than before, and I could actually plant everything. I gathered hardwood after that and got another beehive, but in my haste to get it on the scale before John was done for the day, any ounce of my throwing ability just went out the window. Got there though with just a few minutes to spare. I also needed more gum logs, but I just opted to pick them up from the ground to not spend my stamina. Whilst processing the wood, I was hearing this peculiar sound which I thought was a new bug. It wasn't. It was a meteor shower. I wanted to be out to enjoy the night sky when I noticed this much brighter, slower one heading downwards. That's gotta mean something, right? We've been hit! Okay, it's not that dramatic, but it is exciting. I could just pick it up and bring it back, but I could also smash it. What if there's something cool in there? Breaking it open, I found some zirconium ore and a meteor chunk. I had no idea what these are going to be used for yet, but we will absolutely be finding out sometime soon. Being a reasonably rare event, I couldn't help setting up the camera for a few pictures to remember this night. I was hoping to get one of Fletch watching the shooting stars, but she stopped as soon as she noticed me. Rain understood the assignment though. What a lovely night. Day 31 began with some pathing. Gotta make sure the plant shop is joined up with the rest of the town, and I had enough to start on the area next to my house. I then headed for the oceans to hunt for pearls. These clowns take 10 days to produce new ones, so I thought I should probably just grab the nearby ones at least, and my hang glider really helped me here so I didn't have to swim quite so much. It's certainly quicker, and it was a great time to find any autumn fish hanging out here. I made sure not to miss out on checking the greenhouse for seeds, but Rain wasn't stocking anything new for me, and she was like 2 hours late. I still helped her with the cactus figs she asked for, and she made up for my disappointment by giving me another cabinet. Nothing matches in my house, and it's still looking sparse in here, but for now we have more storage, which will again be used for clothing. I had 3 fish to donate to the museum, and the permit points from that meant I could unlock the first vehicle license for the ability to travel through water in boats and stuff. Even though I made the effort to get the rowboat crafted, I didn't end up getting some good use out of this for ages. I also crafted a scythe to cut down all the sugarcane, though I should have been more careful with this because I accidentally cut down some of my tomato plants too. In those spots went more sugarcane and wheat. I did change my mind a bit earlier and topped up on seeds just to be growing something. My next crafting project was a grain mill so I could process that raw sugarcane into something usable. Then I ran around in the dark catching bugs. Day 32 brought a first-time visitor to Sprout Shores. It was Melvin, the furniture seller. That's not all he was selling today. He also brought some coconuts. Yes, I could forage for these for free, but it was a step towards welcoming him as a permanent resident. I bought both the pieces he had for sale since that's another requirement for his move here. Then I delivered 3 new bugs from last night to the museum. I ended up just releasing the spares, not willing to wait for John to open because today was to be spent in the deep mines, except I forgot my keys. Sure, I could have just reset the day, but I live with my mistakes, even if it is very costly. I grabbed my keys from the chest and returned to the elevator, without a pass to use it. Wonderful! Good thing I have a spare. It was definitely worth me being down here this day because my first treasure floor had a ruby for me. Hopefully I can find several of these, they're worth a fortune. And of course I wasn't going to pass up a good old-fashioned treasure chest. My second ruby of the day, I tried throwing at this contraption next to the elevator, which spat out ruby shards. We'll need this to change the mine floors. I probably should have done this last for the pocket space though. Speaking of, I feel like we've been missing a certain something recently, if you've seen some of my other videos that is. I feel like you know what happens in the mines by now, so maybe we should skip to the end of the day for a good old-fashioned loot review. In addition to the one that we turned into shards, we found 4 more ruby chunks, which I cannot wait to sell. I don't want to talk about the 5th shard here. That's just the result of a little mishap. You only get 1 shard if it's broken by anything but the special machine. There's several whole bars in here along with some ore to smelt, and the boogie board is a fun find that I'll never use. I kept all the rubies in my house for the night, worried about something happening to them. Then on day 33, I started making additions to my storage to get my loot away, whilst trying to keep it all organised. John was open by the time I sorted that, so I ran back and forth dropping each ruby on the scale, most of which were quite hefty. This resulted in a profit of about 317,000 dinks. You know what I'm gonna do with that kind of cash? Pay off the town debt, so I can pick up the clothing shop deed. Yes, that last visit from Clover left her happy enough to move here, but I was too busy yapping about storing my clothes to have mentioned that we were soon to have a whole shop for them, and I paid off the entire store there and then too. I put the site near the plant shop and the bandstand, and compiled the materials by lunchtime. Then I topped up on cabbage seeds in Rain's shop knowing she'd be closed tomorrow. After allowing the town a few hours of being debt-free, I approached Fletch for the next deed. I'm gonna get the wish fountain built, and what better place for it than in the middle of town? Getting those materials together occupied me till the evening, when I added a windmill nearby to speed up some of my machines, and added billy can kits to 2 more of my campfires to triple the jam production. Of course, I gotta be able to fill those with fruit, so I expanded my little orchard too. I couldn't wait to rush all of my discs to Franklin the next day. Well, I did keep a couple spare, but he was happy to take these 20 off my hands for 186 grand. Seems Franklin doesn't travel light. He even brought his kitchen sink, but I guess he thought it was too inconvenient to take back with him, so he sold it to me for a very small price. I could do with one of those, I suppose. He's still not convinced Brownshaw's is the place for him, so I made sure to get another commission in whilst he was still around. This time for a motorbike, except I didn't have the necessary vehicle license. Couldn't afford it either, just a few hundred permit points short, so I panicked my way through whatever villager quest that I could, but I ended up just 20 permit points away. I scoured the milestones for anything that might be in reach, noticing this one here for selling crops. I pulled out what I thought were enough from my chests and landed 7 away. Luckily I had exactly that many remaining, except it still didn't work. Tomatoes don't seem to count. I then remembered that trade I did with Rain earlier was from the bulletin board, so her daily quest was still available. She was only after a stink bug, and those things are everywhere, so it wasn't long before I could return to her for my permit points. I didn't even care about whatever else she was going to give me, but this fruit salad was a nice bonus. I picked up the license, no driving test necessary, then showed it to Franklin so we could begin work on my new wheels, which I'll get in the mail tomorrow. That ate up more of my day than I'd planned, but it wasn't until the afternoon that I noticed I could harvest my rice. And oh look, another milestone! If I only knew earlier, and to add to it, selling some of it did count towards that farmer's market milestone. Yikes. Oh well, I still got what I needed in time. To fill my evening with some more calm and joyful activities, I caught some creatures and filled my pockets with shells. Nothing like some beach loot, am I right? On day 35 I unboxed my shiny new motorbike. I've missed this thing. I gave it a very quick spin before getting humiliated by a nearby insect. I suck. Clover had joined us here, making our 5th new resident. This meant I needed to report to Fletch for a chat. She announced that Sprout Shores is officially recognised as a settlement, and we can now upgrade this tent to a real town hall. Fletch will cover the monetary costs, but it'll be up to me to supply the building materials, and as a thank you, I got a golden jackaroo statue to display in our town. I had some other things to tend to before I was ready to get crafting again, but being a little short on hardwood for the town presented the perfect opportunity to hop on the motorbike to speed up gathering more. The best part is that we can now use it for an easier way to bring home things like the beehives rather than atop my skull. If only I could get it on there properly though. It's got to be positioned just right and snap into place, but you can fit another one on the front. No idea how I can see driving like this though. I then decided to break one open in the hopes of rehoming another queen bee so I can make a beehive of my own, but the other I still sold off for 12.5 grand. I just about caught Rain in her shop before she closed, and I'm glad I did, because I didn't have any pumpkin seeds yet. These can take quite a bit of space, so I only bought 8 of them. Then, once I dropped off the town hall materials, I placed my new bee house and got to work on a second crop field. The pumpkins can send vines in 4 directions, so I set these out like I would the basic sprinklers in Stardew. It did take a lot of brain power, which also meant it took quite a long time. Had to protect them all with a fence too, but being short on gumwood meant this took the rest of the night. Day 36 was Skyfest. I didn't have a clue what this was about, but we could make kites here and there were a lot of choice for them. They all need a kite kit, which I didn't know how to get, so I checked in with Fletch at the bandstand who told me that from 11 AM I could grab one ahead of the Flying Lantern event, which we'll hear about later. Then tonight there's going to be an aurora, a rare occurrence and the entire reason we're celebrating in the first place. The businesses were all closed for it too, and it looks like we can't do the daily quests on a festival day, so I needed to take the day off and enjoy the festivities. I still had to water the crops though, they don't care what day it is. I snapped some photos of the occasion, then with my complete inability to relax, I sawed up some planks to prep some more paths. My kite kit was ready by then, so I went with a pink diamond kite for something classic. I mean, look how cute this is. I put the paths down once I'd had my fun with that, but then I just had to whip out my camera when I saw the villagers running around with kites too. That's adorable. Oh, that's not. I wanted to try getting some of the pictures as well with the tripod when I heard a whistle. Actually, it took me a minute to register what I heard, but grabbing these photos felt worth it anyway. I asked Fletch about that whistle, having forgotten about the earlier mention of the Flying Lantern event, and basically we have to hit down as many flying lanterns as possible. Each one drops a ticket we can trade for prizes. Now you can use your kites to do this, but this proved impossible for me, so I switched to a slingshot instead. Don't worry, Fletch said I could. Kinda glad the townies don't steal your drop tickets as well, they're everywhere. When it started getting dark and my slingshot was almost broken, I had a gander at what was available in the prize box, and there are some incredible items in here, but for today I went with the wallpaper, the moon lamp, and the searchlight. I did want to try and get more though, so I tried for 2 more tickets, making sure to grab a few pictures of this beautiful night sky. Then when I was ready to turn in for the night, I grabbed the shirt and a second moon lamp. I adore all of these items, I just wish I had more tickets. I woke up on day 37 with my lovely new shirt. Looks like Theodore was not content with my outfit though.
What's that supposed to mean?
You know what? I'm gonna rock this look. Noticing Franklin was back, I rushed over to my crates to retrieve my discs for him. Oh, there's only 2. I like to keep one just in case I need it, so we aren't getting much money from here right now. I also had some old clothing he was after, giving me a little table in exchange. That is lovely and all, but the best part of his visit today is that he was happy enough to speak to Fletch about moving in. I had a couple of chores to do before entering the new town hall. Oh yeah, that building is done now, by the way. It was yesterday, but I was so distracted by the event that I didn't even notice. Franklin's crafting lab is going to set the town back 250k. Well, mostly me, I mean. You know how it goes. It took me some time to pick out a spot for it, but I ended up putting it next to the museum in a space that I've not done much with yet. I was rudely interrupted from gathering the building materials by this alpha jackaroo I forgot I needed to eradicate. Well, I guess its time is now. Despite being immensely unprepared, I still won that fight. These are the easiest of the alphas in my opinion. That didn't delay me too much, but this beehive kind of did, because when I plopped it on the scale, John didn't tell me the price, instead letting me know he'd like to have a recycling bin in town. It'll be cleared every Thursday, but on the other days, I could rescue any unwanted items. Free and easy mystery loot? Sign me up. Because of all those happenings, it took me till after dark to get the materials together, though I did spend longer than I needed gathering extras for future projects, but now I can rest knowing that the lab's construction will be underway. Day 38 began with crafting a buttload of torches and running over to the elevator with my ruby shards because today we're exploring a new floor called the Undergrove. We do still need a mines pass in addition to the gem shards to make our way down. I exited into this jungly looking place. It seemed quiet so far, and I just had to pick up all these glow buttons. They'll be adorable decorations for the town, but my piece ended as soon as I opened my first treasure room. There was an emerald to mine in there, but the place was infested with grubs. Getting beaten up made me realise I forgot to eat, so I wolfed down 3 cooked prime meat and turned back to fight them. But to stop this being an endless struggle, I also have to destroy the burrow to stop more spawning. I was then safe to mine the emerald and brought it to the elevator. The thing is, these treasure rooms have multiple sections, but the grubs often spilling out of doorways did not make it easy. Not all of the rooms have loot, but I did find a second emerald, and bringing that one back for safekeeping, I came across a slightly bigger and much badder monster. This is the blooming frilly. Sharp teeth, sharp tongue, and it's poisonous. I was glad I was by the elevator so I could hide for a minute to recover. Even if I wasn't full on food, the poison would have also stopped me from eating, but I did have this first aid kit at least, except you can't use it in the elevator, so I just popped my head out now and again to try and get a hit in periodically with limited success. It brought me to the brink of death at one point, but fueled by the last scraps of my first aid kit and the motivation of all the potential loot I hadn't found yet, I found it in me to defeat this lizard. Exploring a little further around, I found our third hazard, these carnivorous plants. Being a stationary target, they're a bit easier to deal with. Aside from the higher difficulty, I just treated this like I would the regular deep mines floors hunting for treasure, so ignoring the one time I got overwhelmed by the grubs who seemed to have robbed me, why don't we just see what I came home with? I came up with 3 emerald chunks in the elevator, with a 4th having been crushed into shards for another day, and yes, there is a horrendous amount of empty space in here, but we did obtain some fun lanterns for our town, as well as finding out that the Undergrove is another source of that Baconium ore, even if I didn't get very much. The only other thing I want to point out is the wand here. It's a stone wand, which makes rocks appear, but I don't really use this much, if ever. The reason for all that empty space is because I took my leave much earlier than I hoped, but the silver lining was that this meant John was still available to buy the emeralds off of me. I got just over 170 grand for the 3 of them, and judging by the prices, they may be similar in value to the ruby, or am I wrong here? Let me know. I still made back way more than the grubs had stolen, but with so much more day left, I picked something much calmer to do, like plant these cute flowers and install the lanterns, given that the town is pretty much lacking in lighting. Melvin was visiting for day 39. I made sure to clear his shop of items, then tended to the crops I ignored yesterday in favour of the mines. Those hits we took yesterday did quite a number on my tools, so I thought now was the best time to pick up all the almost broken items I've been hoarding and bring them to my repair table to get them repaired. One single kit is enough to repair all the broken tools you're carrying. Kinda makes sense now as to why they cost 30 grand a pop, but this will save us on the ores, and it means we can keep using some of the more rare items we come across and cannot craft. I did not forget about Melvin's quest, which was just a couple of palm logs for his furniture projects, but this won't be the day that we build a furniture store, unfortunately. I was in need of more iron, but I didn't feel like spending another mines pass, so I just rode around on the motorcycle looking for these bigger rocks. It's not guaranteed, but you can at least get some iron from these, and the other stuff wouldn't go amiss either. And I also found a fossil in a normal rock. I rode it home to sell off for 63,000 dinks, then stuck around home to smelt the day's ores and crush these shiny stones in the hopes of getting more. With some of the regular stones, I made some rock paths to scatter around various parts of town, which I think helps with the more natural look I'm going for, but I take longer than I really need to overthinking random placements of these tiles. First thing on day 40, I paid off the town's debt so I could work on the next available deed, because it seems Franklin deems us worthy of building the town's very own telepad now that we've restored all the others, and I think there's a perfectly sized nook right next to his lab for it. Noticing those old rice growing spots had now turned back into mud, I converted it all to regular dirt to stop mangrove trees growing. I then made my first visit to Franklin's lab to buy the blueprint, and to ask what I need to commission a chainsaw, though I was short on iron for it, so I had to track down some more, and I needed to dig up some other parts for it too. Uncovering another amber chunk was a lovely surprise, and even though the motorbike does improve speed, I'm not always the best at driving it. It will go back in its box if it gets too wet, and my aim for throwing stuff onto vehicles still hasn't improved really either. As a reminder, it does have to snap onto the bike, and it can't be over the seat because it won't let me drive. Yes, despite my embarrassment, I still showed you this so you can experience the pain with me, and I don't even want to talk about this moment shortly after, though I won't. Just see for yourself. What a day. Let's move on to day 41 when I was actually able to get the chainsaw in order. I'll get it in the mail tomorrow. We have a new visitor today, Sally the hairstylist. I think I remember the salon being one of the last buildings we added to Bush Lagoon, and with a friendship requirement of 2.25 hearts, it's gonna be a while before she calls this place home too. I also need to spend 10 grand with her, so I got a new haircut and colour. This style with the pink hair is probably one of my favourites. Worth every penny, and we got some permit points. We bagged 50k from that amber chunk from yesterday, then I hunted for some more treasure for that telepad and the old keys for the mines. Brought another amber chunk back too, that's another 53 grand. Then spent the rest of the evening looking for more large rocks, having used up most of our iron on that chainsaw. Day 42, I pulled my chainsaw out of a letter somehow. Then when I wanted to look at some licenses from Fletch, she wanted to talk to me about our growing economy. She thinks it's about time we build a bank. I did have some debt to clear again to be able to grab the deed, but this will be the first actual building over the South Bridge. I didn't want a whole corporate financial vibe in the cozier centre of town. I won't be handling the materials today though, because after selling off some extra stuff from my pockets, I needed to descend to the deep mines. I'd cleared most of the surface of large rocks now, so coming down here to stock up on iron ore became unavoidable at this point. I could have kept any spare guitars to sell. These poor things deserve a better fate than the floor. Actually, I did go back for this one, but you know what a mines day comes with? That's right, an end of day loot review. I got 2 ruby chunks today, but I was mainly keeping my eye out for iron ore, so there's every chance I might have run past more ruby rocks down there. Still, I'm happy to return with 20 ingots worth of iron, plus the 2 whole bars I found. I got several weapons from the treasure chest, and yes, I did actually bring 2 guitars out with me. Clearly I had nothing better to replace them with. Still, I'm feeling good about this trip, I think. Someone new was stationed at the visitor site the following day. This is Julia, Theodore's little sister, creepy crawly enthusiast, and host of the bug catching competition every autumn and spring. Obviously, I just had to have the comp bug net, then found out how to go about this competition. It's different to the fishing one. Instead of requiring a specific species, I just had to catch as many bugs as I could, but the rarer the bug, the more points it's worth, and we just have to get the highest number of points to win. Like the other one though, we do have to be back before 4 PM to register our score, which begins counting after 9 AM. Let's do this! Of course, it was only a matter of time before my pockets were full to the brim. I wasn't sure at this point if the points only counted for what I was carrying, or if it was for all the bugs I caught today, so to be on the safe side, I released only the 1-pointers, which I had plenty of. I did have to make room a few times, but as the clock was nearing 4 PM, I moved closer to town to try to get some last-minute nearby catches. Didn't find any bugs around here, so I turned in my score a little early and was horrified to see just how much Franklin was thrashing us by. Not fair. He's probably got some genius bug-catching contraption or something. Oh well, the real win for me today was that I found 2 brand new bugs for the museum along the way. I did check back in with Julia in the tent again a little later, mainly to sell off my bugs, but I also asked if she needed anything, to which she requested a pineapple. Completely distracted by this item I had no idea even existed in this game, I left without selling any bugs. This sucks because she too buys our catches for 2.5 times the price. To be fair though, most of my remaining ones are not worth that much at all. On day 44, I retrieved my silver bug trophy from the mail along with a nice lamp from Theodore, with the bug trophy getting displayed next to the fish one, and the lamp getting a place inside my house. I then made my first copper axe in a while, because, even being the genius that he is, Franklin couldn't seem to make one for himself. That being said, he did pay me for the item, but didn't actually take it. What was this, a test of my skills? The previous day's bug race meant I didn't sell those 2 rubies from the mines, so doing that today, I gained another 163 grand from both of those. Then I finally got those materials together for the bank, so the building can be constructed. Gotta be able to put that money somewhere. Fletch had a new farming license ready for me which has some better farming tool blueprints, and you might notice I've been hoarding my permit points for a while. That was because I wanted the last cargo license for 3 more pocket slots, but prioritising the farming stuff put me a few hundred short of getting it. Doing some villager requests will help with this, and I also had a bulletin board one to investigate something weird that fell out of the sky. Looks like some sort of satellite wreckage. Breaking it open to salvage what's inside automatically completes that quest, so I guess the parts are our prize. When I greeted Theodore for the day, I noticed the fish book for sale. It's 118 grand, so not a small price, but it's more than worth its price because it tells you which fish are in the water and makes it easier to identify fish you haven't caught for the museum yet too. I'll show you next time we fish. Not now whilst I'm still scrambling for the permit points for the cargo license, and at my last villager request, I landed just 30 points away. I flew off to find some more to smelt because I had 1 more journal daily left, but by the time I got back to smelt them, Fletch had exited the tent. I got round to upgrading my watering can that evening. Watering 3 tiles at once gives me a much easier time. Then the rest of the night was metal detecting along the coasts because, believe it or not, I still haven't begun the telepad construction. On day 45 I met another brand new visitor I've never seen before, even on the last island. This is Sheila, the chef of Tuckerbox. Love the name. When she visits, she can buy a certain food at a premium, and she'll sell ingredients too. Today she's buying Lamington, but I don't yet have the animals to get some of these ingredients, so no extra cash for me. She can eventually move here to open a permanent restaurant, so I better get to work on her friendship. I did accept the request for a sausage roll, but these need big chicken eggs which I can't get yet. At least at 0 friendship I haven't lost anything. I passed by the town hall to grab my final cargo license, and with my leftover permit points, I also bought my first animal handling license in the hopes that this might attract Erwin to visit, who we've not even seen yet this year. It was then time to deposit the items for the telepad so we can make use of it. Then I popped next door to Franklin to hand over my remaining discs in exchange for 100 grand. I hadn't checked his catalogue in a while, and whilst browsing, I noticed improved versions of power tools. As keen as I was to get hold of these, they are 2 million dinks a pop, and take a lot of expensive materials. They're more late game purchases really, though I do long for this Harvac which can pick up items from the ground and off of plants. A girl can dream. I was still after a query from him though for a renewable place for ores and treasure, and I was happy to part with 70 grand for it. I upgraded my scythe to harvest my sugarcane before buying some cabbage, rice, and more sugarcane seeds from Rain. I guess this was a stock up because I only planted some of the cabbage. I then just couldn't get the town safety off my mind because this alpha croco here was much too close for comfort. I don't want my townies being eaten. This rock stomp move, or whatever you might want to call it, makes it take longer to fight. Probably my least favourite of the alphas, but my iron spear eventually did the job. I then used my chainsaw to take down a load of hardwood trees, making sure to replant them around here for when I next need more. I was still in need of paths for over the North Bridge, and to join up the future telepad. On day 46 I rescued some items from the recycling bin I kind of forgot about, which were mostly clothing, but there was a poor crab living in here too. That was just a quick distraction on my way to welcome Milben the banker to town. Before I'd even deposited a single dink, I purchased the ADM which allows us to withdraw cash at any hour, but we can't use it to deposit. Still gotta come into the bank for that. I think 50 grand is more than worth that kind of convenience. I plopped that quarry down next to the mines, then stuck the ADM next to John's because I feel like that's something you see with a lot of little corner shops. But as excited as I was for the opening of the bank, I didn't deposit any of my dinks there today, instead using some up to pay off the debt. This was because I wanted to check what deeds were still left, but it's just all the extra houses which I don't want to build yet. Most of my remaining money went on the insect book at the museum. A little bit cheaper than the fish book because bugs tend to be easier to see, but still I get plenty of use out of this thing. That reminded me to take advantage of the fish book to cover this season's fish, and new ones are identifiable by all the question marks. It's also going to make villager quests easier too. This unknown fish was a whopper. I wasn't even sure my current fishing rod would even manage it, but I reeled it in, a yellowfin tuna. Thanks to the book, I caught several first catches, a silver perch, a grayling, a bony tongue, an empire gudgeon, and a tarpon. That's 6 new donations for the museum, and let's be honest, I don't think I'd manage the fishing collection without the book. Back out I went on an insect hunt this time, but when I didn't find anything new, I switched back to fishing. Not only did I find more new fish for nighttime, but it also points out the more profitable ones, like that tuna is worth almost 25 grand. Day 47 and I got another book from Rain this time. This plant book will tell us how long till a plant is ready for harvest. As useful as this is, I think I only used it like twice. Sally was back for the day. I didn't get a haircut or anything, but I did forward our friendship with a fly she asked for, then spent the money from selling that tuna on another furnace from John. I ran round with the bug book for a while for villager quests and to look for new discoveries. Then I wasn't planning to handle this yet, but I happened upon the specific location required for a photo quest, so I might as well just get it done too. Franklin paid 12 grand for that photo, but the highlight prizes of the day had to be the shirt Milburn gave me for catching a fish.
B stands for shirt. What?
And this frog hat from John. With what's left of the day, I fulfilled more villager quests and hunted for more new fish again. The permit points gained from all of that went towards unlocking the next building license on day 48. This one was completely new to me. It gives us the blueprints for advanced crafting and cooking tables, which allows them to pull materials and ingredients from nearby storage. That really is an upgrade. It does come at a cost though, of Baconium bars and cloth, neither of which I have. I mean, I do have a few of the ores, but I didn't want to use them up yet given how difficult they are to get right now. I cut down a load of palm trees close to home, which went into crafting some animal feeders for our future chooks. Then to help with some terraforming efforts, I asked Franklin to make me a compactor, which will basically just squash down the dirt rather than me having to move it. I'm planning to use this over the North Bridge. This area is also where my animals are going to go. I wanted to have at least one initial pen ready, so I don't have to scramble to do this whenever Erwin decides to grace us with his presence. Next up, my first pumpkin harvest, and now you can see how they spread out from their plant in the middle, and they do have the chance to shoot off more vines on future days too. After reseeding the mangrove area a little bit more, I fought an alpha jackaroo in the dark, and ran along the southern shores with my book open after receiving a letter from the fish tipster about an unknown nightfish here. I positioned myself on a rock in the ocean so I could reach with my fishing rod to catch the blobfish, and in the waters right in front of me, I found a black sea cucumber. 2 new creatures in a matter of minutes. An awesome end to a day. I went out fishing again the morning of day 49, with multiple friends asking me to catch them something. One of the fish I caught this morning was for today's visitor, Melvin, but because he needs a full heart of friendship to move here, I'll ask him another time. It wasn't till later in the afternoon that I finished everyone's task for the day, which is when I swapped out some of my outfit into all yellow things, aside from my frog hat that is, so I could really embody this bird frog look I've got going on, especially pairing it with the glider as my wings. That's enough of a break for now though. I got back on with working on the town by adding some overdue pathing past the South Bridge. This time, I didn't use the same hardwood paths we've got going through the rest of the place. With the mines in the bank, I thought this needed something different, some brick paths, and I extended them just a little further beyond the mines, since I do want to add more buildings in this direction later. Lastly, and I can't believe I'm still working through this, I had some more mud to remove from the town perimeter. Mangrove trees be gone. On day 50, I baked up some bread to turn into fairy bread which has a speed buff. I'll be saving these for the mines. That's not a place I'm going today. I worked on some villager requests to grind permit points, then bought some sugarcane seeds since they'll continue growing into winter. I was going to have to wait for the turn of a new season to plant these spaces with new crops, but I can't guarantee I'll find new seeds on the early days anyway, so I might as well just be growing something. Plus I do have other spots that should be harvestable by then anyway. Clover's quest today took longer than I'd hoped. She was after a common bluetail, which was proving not quite so common. 3 in-game hours is what it took me to find one, even with the help of the bug book. I was starting to get worried about this because they do go away when it gets dark, and when it did get dark, I got back to work clearing more mangrove area. Erwin finally travelled over to Sprout Shores on day 51. Truly a sight for sore eyes. This baby chook is gonna love it here, I hope, and for the names this time I wanted to challenge myself by moulding the suggested name into an animal related pun. This actually proved harder than I thought, but I loved this one. Considering this video should hopefully be up in December, she'll be called Merry Chickmas. Those warm fuzzy feelings on the day of welcoming a new animal friend were cut extremely short. You are not prepared for the chaos that's about to ensue. What have I done? I don't know if I can fully convey the sheer panic running through me at this very moment. Enjoy watching me trying to fix this before she becomes food. I was basically trying to make desperate attempts to pen her in where she was, hoping to then join that up to her real home zone, but she's far too quick and little for me. Maybe I could dig her into a hole? No, she's too smart for that too. I'm just destroying the beach at this point. I was kind of worried about her drowning, but she apparently knows better. Then my next lightbulb moment was an animal trap, but after several attempts, she was completely unaffected. Clearly I picked a good one. That's when I realised. I know those of you who know the game are screaming by now, but I calmly reassembled the fences, then stood inside and played the guitar to call her over. That's literally all I needed to do. A job of seconds, but I guess you can see just how much the panic really invaded my brain. I breathed a sigh of relief as I filled up the feeders. She doesn't need 3 of them, but at least it means if I forget on any day, she's got extra. Ready to do literally anything else, I went out foraging, but I was also looking for this grass yellow butterfly, and being for Erwin, I had to get this one done. Theodore's ask for the day was for clothing. I feel like he'd really pull off this fake beard, and even though he'll never wear it, he still approved and gave me a whole bed in return. My first non-bag shaped sleeping slab. The only thing is the way that my house is set up means I don't really have space for it, so this will have to wait for an expansion. Day 52, I harvested the last cabbages of the season before building 2 crafting tables for Theodore's bulletin board quest. Before handing them over to him, I sold off my farm goodies and spare things I had for another 55 grand, significantly more than what Theodore had paid me for my careful handiwork. Still, I wanted to spend some dinks today, buying a mine pass and a house customization kit, but most of the rest of my funds will be deposited in my no longer empty bank account. Now, it's time to give my house a bit of a glow up. I was over the plain white shed exterior, so I perused all the options and went with something a little more me. I think the only thing I didn't change was the fence option. I do like the hedges. It was then over to the town hall to unlock my final inventory slot with a tool belt license. My loot carrying potential is maximised, for now. I thought I should probably fix the beach up from yesterday's blunder so that I could plant all my coconut trees in this area, then purchased a second barbecue so I could run in between them and cook more things at once. I'm hoping I can visit the mines again soon, so I spent the evening preparing tools and weapons after some got broken when I died in the undergrove, and I also made a couple more mills to process more flour, sugar and animal feed. Whilst I was putting away my animal food, I witnessed the cuteness overload that was Merry Chickmas snoozing. I just had to get a pic or two. I mean, look at her. She's the best. I had to do some fishing for our guest Melvin the next day, got it done as quick as possible so I could hop into the deep mines. Finding a fossil basically right after I got there I took as a good sign of the day to come. And finding my first miner's hat definitely confirmed it, but that's enough for your sneak peek. You know what the mines are all about, so let's go ahead and show you the end of day loot review. Along with the fossil, that's 4 ruby chunks riding in the elevator with me, and in my pockets are the shards of a 5th one in prep for a future undergrove trip. As you can tell by the 3 empty spaces, things could have gone a little better. Barely got any ores either, so fingers crossed those ruby chunks are nice and heavy to make up for it. I wanted to ask for a charging station from Franklin first thing on day 54, but with 651 dinks to my name, I got a little bit roasted by him. Good thing I still had my mining stuff to sell. That's because between those 5 bigger items, I gained 344 grand, so no problem affording that machine from Franklin. That way, I'll be able to charge out that miner's hat. Even after that, that was mostly paid for by the extra loot from the mines, plus a bit of jam, and since I'm now holding quite a bit of money, it was a good time to top up my bank balance some more. Then to be honest, most of this day was spent getting various items for villages and journal dailies, as well as checking the land and waters for new creatures given that we're 2 days away from winter. Didn't find anything though. Sally was back on day 55. She was only after a blue moon butterfly, so a very easy ask, and after a bit of tool shopping at John's Goods, it didn't take long to find one at all. She must really love these if she paid almost 12 grand for it. No crops to water in this weather, but I did have the last big pumpkin harvest to enjoy, selling all 6 of them for another 20k. Working through my villager tasks meant I now could upgrade my brewing license to unlock the keg blueprint in an effort to keep expanding on the ways that we make money. Taking 3 bars each of copper and iron though, they're quite expensive to make, so I only made 1 to begin with. According to the machine book, I could only insert jelly. I struggled through fighting a jellyfish to grab one, but what the book doesn't tell you is that you need 10 of them. I'll revisit that another day. I'd rather go catch bugs anyway, and today I caught 2 Lagerdale, 1 to donate to the museum, and another for Clover's request. I then worked on crafting and placing a 3rd hardwood bridge that evening to go off to the east this time. I just thought this little gap would suit one here, even if I don't make use of the space across it this year. Do you know what though? I'm so glad I checked the waters with the fish book again that evening because I found another unidentified fish. A mouth almighty, what a name, and I completed a journal milestone as my 25th species of fish. I brought it straight to the museum the following morning to add it to the collection and claim my permit points, and whilst I was there I noticed these blank frames on the wall. Here we can display our photos, so I did just that to display some of my favourite little moments on Sprout Shore so far. I picked up loads of shells on the beach to sell to John for a daily permit point task before buying some last minute pumpkin seeds from Rain. Even though they won't grow next season, it'll be nice to have some ready in case she doesn't have them available on the 1st of autumn next year. Speaking of next year, be sure to hit the like button and let me know in the comments if you want to see a second year on Sprout Shores. Don't let me waste these pumpkin seeds now. I didn't let this gross weather put me off working on more pathing to that new bridge. Then I used my compactor to remove this awkward thin ridge of dirt near the chook pen. Much quicker than the shovel and very satisfying to use. Look at it go! And when that was done, I of course had to snap another sleepy chook photo now that Merry Chickmas was all grown up. She is still just as cute though. Then, for my last bit of new season prep, I extended the little crop field currently housing the pumpkins. I know we'll be able to grow crops till in winter, and I've definitely outgrown the space we've already got. Erwin was our first town guest of this new season, and all he wanted today was to sell me a chicken hood. Extremely expensive at 26,000 dinks, but I needed the friendship, and believe me when I say, this piece is worth it. 2 beaks are clearly better than 1. No longer Frogbird, I am Birdbird. Anyway, producing my own animal feed was proving slower than I'd like, so I stocked up at Erwin's tent since it's cheap to buy anyway. Then I couldn't pass on the opportunity to get Merry Chickmas a friend. Shiloh was our start name. I had no idea how to spin this one, so Shfeathers it is.
What's that?
Yeah, I think I peaked on my very first animal if I'm honest. I released her much more carefully without the additional flight this time, by which point Rain was open, except she wasn't offering anything really new to me. I already have a few corn plants, so I just grabbed some rice which didn't even go in the fenced areas, and some wheat which are good to have around anyway. I didn't plant most of the wheat though, because it seems that the pumpkins do survive the first couple of days of winter, so I wanted to wait till they died off. I just put the wheat in the smaller section for now. I made sure to build Shfeathers her very own coop to sleep in, before tracking down the new season's wildlife, catching a garfish, a luderick, a barramundi, and a banded morwong for 400 permit points for donating them to the museum. Then found a Galaxius shortly after as my last catch of the day. The morning of day 58 just went to villager requests, then I thought I was back at the perfect time for seed shopping, except Rain was really dragging her heels for opening her shop. Not really sure what happened here, but it seems that interacting with something else seemed to unstick her. Glad we got that sorted, because today she's selling carrot seeds which I haven't yet grown, and I bought loads of them. 80 to be exact. It was interesting to see that the main pumpkin plants have withered, but the pumpkins themselves will survive and mature still. Happy these won't go to waste, but it was a minor annoyance because I couldn't just fill this garden with winter crops today. I still worked around them. It's not worth waiting around for, but even those 80 carrot seeds weren't enough. I had to add the leftover wheat and sugarcane seeds too, but I still had unplanted spaces, and by this time Rain's shop was closed, so I won't be able to fill them. I cooked loads of meat on a stick at dinner time. These have become my easy access food, which I needed to help me gather wood for upcoming projects. Couldn't help squeezing in some treasure hunting too, and clearly I was meant to be doing this because I dug up an amber chunk. On day 59, Melvin brought this cabin cabinet with him. Can't imagine the pain that came with bringing this along, but it's an easy sell for me. I crammed this into my little house, even if it does look impractical, because this is actually functioning storage. It was then time for me to head southwest to catch a blue moon butterfly for Melvin, and to brush up on my photography skills yet again because I needed to take a picture of a croco and a bush devil together. I got lucky with this quite quickly, and managed to snap a quick photo, escaping with just a couple of cuts and bruises. Surely putting my life on the line would be worth it, but at just 6,400 dinks, I guess we know what Milburn really thinks we're worth. Wow. All that fishing I've been doing for new donations and for villager requests meant I now had a new fishing license to unlock, and I was curious to find out if the iron rod would actually be better, but I'll admit I don't make this for a while. I was more after the crab pot blueprint. I was over my outfit by this point. I enjoyed it for a little while, but I just wanted something a bit cuter and wintry. Birdbird is retired for now. With the sheer amount of daily watering I now have to do, I was partially regretting planting quite this many crops, but I just had to keep reminding myself it's all going towards my farming level on our way to unlock sprinklers as soon as possible. Then for my next seemingly endless grind, I cut back and converted another little segment of the mangroves. I wanted to end my day on a slightly more fun note, so I crafted this gumwood pergola. I was hoping to put it over my fountain, but I don't think you can actually put anything underneath it. To be fair, I probably wouldn't have done it anyway since it's not centered, so it's going to have its own dedicated area which I'll kit out another day. Day 60 was spent down in the regular deep mines, with my main focus being on iron. I did forget my miner's hat, but let's see what I came back with at the end of the day in our loot review. Okay, first of all, clearly this is a screenshot from the next day, it's just that I got out late enough that I never opened my inventory as I left the mines. I don't know why I explained all that. Anyway, I debated on even doing a loot review for this one because I only had enough keys for one treasure room. I did get a couple of opals and treasure parts, but like I said, I was mainly there for iron, and I got 165 of those ores. Mission accomplished, I'd say. Oh, and let's not forget the rubies. That's 5 chunks in there with me, which selling them the next day brought in a total of about 345,000 dinks. So yeah, lots of ore and lots of money. That was to fund a house upgrade. I really needed space for more furniture. Fletch took the money up front, then all I have to do is provide the materials. Looking back now, I'm surprised to see that I didn't handle that today. Instead, while smelting up my ores, I handled villager requests and tended to my crops, then finished off my day with some treasure hunting, mainly to restock on old keys, even if I only found a few. I saw my first snow on day 62. It's super pretty, and I like that it doesn't completely blanket the place. It's a nice variation on other games in my opinion. I added 220k to my bank balance in an effort to push it towards the 1 million Dink Journal milestone. Then coming back outside, I noticed these big snowballs around the place. The only thing I could think to do at first was to throw it at someone, but that didn't really do anything, and doing this a few times broke it into smaller snowballs which I could put in my pockets. I thought maybe I could throw these ones, but that didn't appear to be the case. I got on with some other business for now, like selling my next lot of shiny discs to Franklin for 111 grand. Then whilst out working on my house upgrade materials, I thought maybe I could chuck a snowball on the scale to sell perhaps. Rubbish! No John, you may not have my snowball. I'd rather smash it for the materials, ready for when I figured out what to craft with them. That did remind me about the amber chunk waiting outside though, at 45 grand, a much more acceptable price. I refocused myself on my house materials, mainly the gumwood that I'm missing, so I could dump everything in the box that afternoon. Tomorrow, we'll have more space. I checked on my animals as a break between villager requests that afternoon to see that Shfeathers is now all grown up, and they need to top up on food, so soon we'll have a good supply of eggs. I was then ready to part with the materials for my first 2 crab pots, though it did take me far too long to settle on an initial spot for them, and at this stage I haven't figured out that they need some sort of bait, so they'll just hang out for now whilst I head back out to hunt for more old keys again. On day 63, I woke up to a new journal milestone to celebrate my expanded house. I was going to rearrange everything till I remembered that the full cabinets were going to give me a hard time, so I'll sort it out later. I needed something from John's shop which wasn't open yet, but he was available for me to trade an alpha scale with him for 20 instant grow. He opened his door shortly after, where I bought the hand trolley. This useful item allows you to move full containers so we don't have to empty them first. You do still have to remove any items placed on top first though, then you can just scoop the thing up and place it anywhere else. So much easier. Love this addition. Here's the state of my house by the time I placed out the furniture from my storages. It's still a mess of mismatching stuff, but at least it looks a little bit better, with still plenty of space for more if I like. I reluctantly withdrew 100 grand from the ADM when the plant shop opened so I could stock up on 150 carrot seeds in case she doesn't have them the day I want to replant. Then I brought a tomato over to Melvin in his tent. Looks like he's happy with my quality produce because he offered to move in right then. A carpentry type situation I thought would go best by the mines. I can't explain why this works in my head, it just does. And surprise surprise, it's gumwood I was short on for its construction materials. Still managed to get them done in the evening though, then I carried on sawing up planks to try and have more ready for whenever I need them next. On day 64 I could grab the remaining few pumpkins lagging behind. My crab bots had their first catches today because I finally figured out we need to insert some form of meat as bait, but unimpressed with the 2 blue mussels it came up with, I decided to move them to the beach instead to see what we can catch over there. After working on a few more villager tasks, I could unlock the next commerce license to boost sale prices by 10%, but we won't be seeing the final upgrade to this license for a long time because it costs a whopping 9,000 permit points. Gotta chip away at those, so I caught a few bugs for our townies, then found the town co-agent had made their way into the greenhouse, so I used up most of my flour and sugar on crafting a go nut and got some other materials together for the go-go statue. The statue's going near the clothing shop just to add something to this area, and as for the go nut, 5 flour and 5 sugar seems pretty expensive till you find out you can plant it like the fruits for an endless supply. I then did more pathing in the evening, extending up this cliff with a staircase. My plan is to move Franklin's lab up here, but, well, let's just see how long it takes me to remember to move it, shall we? On day 65, I brought another trick from Erwin. Haven? No. Laven. Oh, good grief. I sent her into her pen, then off I went to begin the day's villager requests, getting one of my favourite clothing pieces as a reward from Milburn. That dress is perfect for winter, but whilst Erwin did pay me well for the fly I caught him, he still wasn't ready to move over here on this occasion. Franklin took 10 more shiny discs from me for almost 100 grand, some of which went on buying my first kale seeds. That reminds me, the carrots and the rice are harvestable today. For the carrots, I saved about 30 of them, but sold the other 210 to John for nearly 110,000 dinks. I put 200 grand of today's profits into the bank as well, not long now before our first million. My smaller crop area got the kale seeds, and after fixing up the larger one, I just had to go with more carrots. I debated waiting for the wheat and sugarcane to grow first, but decided I was too impatient for that, and don't worry, I did remember that evening to build Laven her own coop to sleep in too. On day 66 I bought a couple more first aid kits from John ready for this day in the Undergrove. I broke my fast with a prime roast to increase my health and buff my attack and defense. A garden salad added a mining buff, and then added some cooked prime meat alone for the extra health regen. Hopefully this helps me feel a bit safer down here. This time though, I also brought my fishing rod because there's a new fish down here, the deep fish. Feeling the effects of my good nutrition, I had a much better time down here today, but since I spent a lot of time having to navigate whilst being obscured by the vines, why don't we just look at what we brought home at the end of the day. I found a total of 5 emerald chunks today. Very excited to sell these, except I kinda accidentally destroyed one whilst unloading the elevator. Almost a second one broken too. Maybe don't do this with your weapon out. As for my pockets, there's not very much to see here. I didn't find any treasure chests at all, but I did take 22 of the lanterns from down there because they are my preferred lighting option for the town. You might notice it's not actually very late at all. The only reason I can think of as to why I'd leave so early are a mix of running out of old keys and wanting to sell off my emeralds before John closes. The first 3 totaled 169,000 dinks, but I wasn't quite fast enough to sell the last one before he locked his doors. I suppose it did leave me enough time in the day to harvest my wheat, and in their place went some of my remaining kale and carrot seeds. Sheila was back for the first time in a while on day 67. Her tastes are a bit fancier than the current offerings of Sprout Shores, so I had to turn down her quest for roe nigiri, especially since this is the first time I even heard there was fish roe in this game. I did buy the single bag of sugar from her though. It was snowing again, and this time I'd woken up with more brain cells and attempted making a snow friend with 2 of the giant snowballs. The result caused an explosion of more smaller snowballs, so this seems to be the best way if you want to stock up on the material version. I was curious if I was supposed to decorate it myself or something, so I grabbed a carrot from my chest, and it turned out I was just looking at the back of its head. I really wanted to get a couple of pics with my creation, but I just kept looking at it very intensely rather than looking at the camera, so I went with the unhinged close-up route instead. I mean, look at that perfect face. The last emerald sold for nearly 69,000 dinks, a decent price. Suppose that's a good thing, because I wanted to buy a few onions to keep on hand, but for 2,700 a pop? John, what type of onions are these? I only bought 3. I wanted more, but that was all I was willing to spend on those today. I did need another mine pass as well. I made a bit back from a few more crops, then deposited almost all of my cash to bring my bank balance over 1 million. For each new million we have in the account, we'll receive 1,000 permit points. As exciting as this is, back in the day, I am sure we used to get 3,000, but to be fair, that probably was a bit OP. I finally remembered to have a proper look at the furniture shop. Here I found these interior walls. I love that we can make the floor plan how we want, and it doesn't have to be a big square if you're not on board with the studio vibe. I won't be placing those for a while, but I did also leave with a flower pot and a blue wallpaper. Milburn got some shorts for his birthday in between villager requests. I don't know why I have those shorts, probably regifting from another villager. Speaking of requests, Rain asked to buy that blue wallpaper I just bought. No, you can't have it, it's mine. You can have some money for a few cow seeds though, even if not many, with most of my money being in my bank account. Whilst out catching bugs for friends, I located another mysterious wreckage that I didn't hesitate to salvage with a wary moo trying to steal it from me. Little did it know it can't keep me away from the loot. It is now loot. There was another new type of loot nearby, a big ice cube. Well, I mean, it's what's inside that I'm after. Of course I couldn't have this without a fight either, and I did have to run home for a healing snack real quick, but I came back to grab the goods and run while their backs were turned, getting an ice sculpting table. We'll see what goodies we can make with this in a bit, because first I needed to forage and attempt to catch another new fish. My comp fishing rod was no match for it though. This is a powerful fish. Clearly the comp isn't short for competent. I returned to town to hand in my request, my favourite reward today being this flowerbed blueprint, even if I never crafted it. I then set up my new ice crafting table. This uses those snowballs to make some icy decorations. I'm not really going for a wintry theme here, but I did have to gather more snowballs to at least craft the Jackaroo ice sculpture to add to the collection. On day 68, I planted a couple more coconut trees on my beach before noticing the weather and checking the map to find this question mark for a new visitor. This is Jimmy's sketchy boat, and you might be familiar if you've played the game or seen the last adventures on Bush Lagoon. The first thing that caught my eye here was this halo. I wasn't really listening to whatever Jimmy was yapping about. I just had to have this halo. Please just tell me the price. That's a lot of zeros? Never mind. You have no idea the heartbreak and despair— oh, what's this? We can use this to make more keys? 700 grand? Okay, that is a lot of money, but that might just be worth it. In addition to selling some very unique goods, Jimmy also buys stuff in bulk of at least 50. He says he pays double, but it's actually only 50% extra than John. Either way, it's still more than I would get, though I sold off this stockpile of sticks and mechanical bars. At 471 grand, I cannot say no. Looking at his other wares, I found some coffee seeds for sale. Finding out that this is the only place they'll be sold, I grabbed some ahead of spring. Only 2 though, they're expensive. I popped back to town to withdraw 300 grand from the ADM, along with grabbing a few extra items to take advantage of the boost from Jimmy for another 178 grand, then bought that key cycler from him. I did take out too much money, so I put 200k back in the bank, then maxed out my farming license. This unlocked iron farming tools, but no sprinklers yet because it also made the irrigation license available. Yes, there's a whole separate license for them. Let's have a look at that key cycler. This machine takes your extra treasure parts and somehow transforms them into old keys for the mines. It does take a while, but I was hoping this would give me some extra whilst I'm not out treasure hunting. I headed out to check for new night bugs when it got dark, and when I was just about to give up for the night, I found one. The Hercules moth, donating it to the museum first thing on day 69. This morning I wanted to get through some requests early so I could get the permit points to unlock basic sprinklers and water tanks to supply them. Got another 4,000 permit points to go before we can unlock better ones though. I'm gonna need a fair amount of iron for the tank, but it feeds the sprinklers 10 tiles out, so we won't need too many of these. For now, just the one is plenty for my little crop area here. I didn't make any sprinklers yet though, because they need a lot of copper and I barely have any. I caught a bluefish at the beach for Erwin who's visiting today, then took out any copper nodes I could find overground for those sprinklers. I grabbed some hardwood for some other stuff too, having used a lot of my stocks on that water tank. With the snow still around, I couldn't help but test what would happen if I threw a snowball on an ice cube. I mean, it technically does nothing, but I think I made some sort of modern art animal or something. Let me know, what animal do you see here? I gathered resources till the sunset when I ran back and forth at the southern beaches looking for that new fish again. Armed with my iron fishing rod, I was ready for this fight, but the fish didn't show tonight. I needed to leave enough time as well to hand over Erwin's bluefish. I was happy to find a partial harvest of kale on day 70. I put my spare carrot seeds in those spots, then got to the day's watering with my newly upgraded iron watering can, which covers 6 spots at once now. Doesn't hurt quite as much not having sprinklers now. I worked through the smelting and the townie request whilst waiting for rain to open, so I could buy a split of carrot and kale seeds for my stockpiles, just in case she doesn't have them on sale for my next major harvest tomorrow. I was back out with my fishing rod again that afternoon. Turns out that new fish is a daytime one, which explains why I couldn't find it last night. Once it got close enough to hook, I found that this iron rod did feel easier to use, and with this fish being a bit less feisty, I successfully made the catch of the marlin. Then, the rest of the day was really just tracking down creatures for the villagers and chopping more wood. Thank goodness I did that, because Erwin was back the next morning and in need of 4 palm wood planks. I was a little offended at the drain being my reward, but it's all going towards getting him to move in one day. It was harvest time for my bigger veggie garden, and with the space now clear, this was the perfect time to make my first few sprinklers. Obviously, this isn't close to enough, but at least it will still lessen the watering, and instead of selling my carrots to John, I'll save these for next time Jimmy visits. I then went back out surface mining again, but for quartz this time, also needed for those sprinklers. I couldn't resist adding in some treasure hunting too. I wasn't expecting to see a meteor shower tonight. I chased that space loot across the island, and instead of breaking it open this time, I made sure to snap a few pics in case someone asked to see it, and I'll keep hold of this one to sell to John. I'm curious about its monetary value. I continued my treasure hunting into day 72, collecting any shells along the way. I came back to town when John opened to chuck that meteorite on the scale. Even at just 1.3 kilograms, it was worth a delicious 645,000 dinks. I did stare at disbelief in the price for a minute. I think I'll be selling these from now on. Got 500 permit points for it too. I made even more money from Franklin with my next 10 discs, then he wanted to trade some furniture with me. I gave him a bunk bed and got a floor drain in return. What is with people giving me these? I then changed my mind on saving for the next irrigation license, grabbing the waterscaping one instead, which will allow us to create waterfalls. That's not why I bought it though, it was to give us the option to buy the fish farming license. When we unlock this, we can build fish ponds, and that's how we get the row. Not that we can afford it yet. After depositing today's riches into the bank, I spent most of what remained on another spare mine pass, then filled my pockets with fruit so that I could start a bigger orchard in the area behind Melvin's store. I planted a lot more out here in the hopes that it will help with the jam production and maybe fruit salads. I'll be keeping my mini orchard by my house still, and I'll be lining up the harvest times so that these trees can let me know when the rest are bearing fruit. I got the funniest bulletin board request on day 73, Franklin being absolutely shameless. Sure, I'll show you a photo of you. Sheila was also back today, and this time she was craving a sausage roll. Now that's some good taste. I'm pretty sure I had one stored up as well. The dish of the day she was buying was cooked prawn. I haven't really been saving my seafood, and to be honest, I didn't even think to try cooking them. I checked my crab pots this morning, and there wasn't even a king prawn in there. It's as if it were meant to be, except it wasn't. That was my first king prawn, so it really belongs to the museum. It also turned out that I didn't in fact have a sausage roll in my chests, but thankfully I did have the ingredients to cook one now that Mary Chickmas was producing bigger eggs. Sheila's requests are kinda harder earlier game, so I had to take every win I could get. Watering my crops for the day got me thinking. I'm ready to begin building my larger tractor-worthy field. I didn't mind that I wasn't quite ready for the actual tractor yet, since it was going to take time for me to get all the sprinklers and stuff ready too, but this area was going to be just past the mines and the new orchard. I started by clearing all the bigger objects like trees and rocks, and turkeys apparently, then leveled out some land to make it fit how I want. I took a brief break that evening to handle Franklin's request. I basically gave him a full-on sunset photo shoot, including trying to see the world through his eyes, literally. But for the purpose of the quest, I went the nicer route of a picture of him in front of his lab, which he very much approved of. Day 74, I rushed through my crop chores so I can make haste to the mines. Just the regular deep mines today. Nothing particularly notable happened down here, aside from discovering the Go-Go Town phone is powerful enough to hear it all the way down here, so let's get straight on with the end of day loot review. With 162 iron ore and 69 copper ore, it's clear I was mainly here for those resources. I did get 5 treasure chests, with the boogie board being the most exciting item I'll be selling, but adding to the ruby that I crushed for the shards, I only found 2 other chunks of them today. At least I returned with plenty of stuff to smelt. I stuck around nearby to carry on with the smelting the next morning, squeezing in some easier villager quests in between, and selling off my 2 rubies for 181,000 dinks. I was really hoping that this butterfly would be the last favour that we needed to complete for Erwin to join our village, but he's still not satisfied. I need it to be next time so I can start keeping wombats for milk. I did use the opportunity to top up on food though, and it turned out that was all he needed, some extra sales. I had to pay off the remaining town debt to get a hold of the animal shop deed, and that building will be joining the Chooks just across the North Bridge. I wanted to deposit more money into the bank, and noticing my balance was closing in on the 2 million mark, I pulled out some extra ingredients to sell to John so I could top up to the amount that I needed to pass that milestone. There's another 1,000 permit points towards the many remaining licenses. I then prepped the materials for Erwin's shop build before an evening of finishing off villager requests and setting up future wombat and pleat pens. On day 76, I got a helpful letter from the fishing tipster letting me know that there's another river fish for me to find in the mornings. With the help of my fish book, it wasn't long before I found it. It's a Murray cod. I got it over to the museum, then brought a photo of a meteor to John for his request. I'm so glad I saved this now, because 320,000 for a photo is a fortune. Almost half of that went straight to paying off the animal shop debt, and whilst I was in the town hall with Fletch, I picked up the fish farming license to be able to build the fish ponds. I could have cried when I saw the recipe though, and they would not be tears of joy. Some of the materials were a bit of a pain, sure, but the kicker is that it requires a gold fish trophy. Well, that's what I thought at the time. I did not notice the arrows at the top of the ingredients list that allow you to change the recipe, so I could have used my silver trophy, but I didn't know that. All I could think about now was finding out my next opportunity to earn the gold trophy, which happens to be in just 2 days' time. I then made some adjustments to my future pleat pen to make it bigger, and chipped away at more pathing. Then I cooked up some spag bowls for the future mine strips, since they both have attack and defense buffs. That used most of my meat, so I had to go restock that night. On day 77, Erwin sent me some fish and chips for his first day in town. I immediately noticed that it was snowing and checked for Jimmy's location this morning. He's much closer to us today. Before going out there, I checked in with today's visitor Sheila, who was after a fruit salad, her easiest request yet, which she paid me very well for. Then I went on with harvesting all my carrots and kale. This is why I was excited about Jimmy's boat today, and I still had a few hundred carrots stored up for this very moment. Along with some old toys, I had 76 kale and 612 carrots, and here's how much he's buying them for. 821 grand. Adding that to what's in my pockets, I'm now carrying a whole million, and I can't even deposit into my account today because it's closed for the weekend. Now that Erwin has officially moved in, I unlocked the next handling license for wombats, and the animal processing license to go with it so I can process the milk I'll be getting later into cheese. It just so happened that Erwin brought a wombat with him today. He sells one baby larger animal, but always has baby chooks. With the wombats producing milk, we're going with cow-themed names, so this is not in fact Phoenix, this is Nyx. I set her free in her new home, and I will sort out her bed later. I wanted to buy more kale seeds whilst rain was open because I'd not replanted my crops yet. Unfortunately, I didn't buy enough. I rushed into rains with just a couple of minutes to spare and clicked on the wrong seeds. I do not want rice, I want kale. Luckily, you can stop her from leaving if you select the right thing before she manages to leave the building. I did buy too many, but at least it can guarantee I could fill the field. That being said, after doing some of today's villager tasks, I noticed I forgot to fill the smaller field. That used up all but one of the kale seeds, so actually I almost guessed it right. Nyx was already asleep by the time I remembered to build the animal pen, but she did notice when I built it and waddled on over to her cozier spot to sleep. Day 78 and it was time for the next fishing competition. Since it's a Sunday and John's is closed, I had to put some bugs I caught yesterday in terrariums to empty them from my pockets. This time I knew what to expect, and I had a very good feeling about how I might do today. Since I still thought that the fish pond requires the gold trophy, there was a lot riding on this win today. I grabbed that fish and chips from my chest, which gives a significant fishing buff. I've also got my fish book to help me identify the barracuda in the water, and I have the rowboat to help me with some extra ones further out. The food alone made this significantly easier by greatly increasing the speed we reel stuff in. So, let's see how many barracuda we can catch today. I got back to town with 15 minutes to spare and had a quick peek at the scoreboard. The winning score was 7 so far. What's mine? With more than double the fish at 14, I felt I really brought my A game, and that of course was plenty for the win. We'll get our gold trophy tomorrow. I took the chance to sell these back to Max for 2.5 times the price, adding almost $500,000 to today's winnings. I did have to catch one more fish that afternoon though, a bluefish to give to Max for his request. I don't think he can move in or anything, but I might as well benefit from some extra permit points and rewards. I then spent the rest of the day on the villager tasks I put off, including trading clothes with Clover for her bulletin board note, getting a green cardigan dress in return. I thought this piece was really cute. I'm having a bit of a phase with green things at the moment in real life, so I was excited, until I realised I was twinning with Fletch, and that's not quite the vibe I was after. The following morning I could collect my shiny golden fishing trophy from the mail, which I'll display with the others till I'm ready to make the fish pond. Got another 500 permit points for a podium spot too. With the bank open again, I could deposit my next million for 1,000 more permit points, which was a quick stop off on my way to the mines for the day. Oh look, more permit points. This is my 10th trip down here. I have 24 keys, but I think I was mainly here for ore, so let's see if I'm right at the end of day loot review. My pockets! They're full! What a sight to behold! With 100 each of both copper and iron, and a bunch of pre-smelted bars, I definitely met my goal for the day. But we also came back with so much loot. I got a good few extra boogie boards and weapons, most of which will be sold. I've not really been using the paints yet. I don't think I've told you, but I have just been saving these in chests for later. And those seeds in the top row? They're called mighty seeds. I think it's like a plant for Vegemite. Very mysterious. But they can't be grown till summer, which is next year. I crushed one of my rubies to have some extra shards for the undergrowth, but I did also find an additional 5 chunks of ruby, which we'll be selling tomorrow. The start of day 80 was like our last post-mines morning, getting things done close by to work through smelting all this ore. The 5 rubies totaled almost 400 grand, with my first of the day being my biggest yet, contributing 100 grand of this alone. I did have a few items to sell along with the mining loot, but the pocket-sized items came to a total of 161 grand. Sheila was today's visitor, and whilst I don't have the mushroom soup she was requesting, I did have some ingredients for sausage rolls which she was buying for a premium. Just 3 of them fetched me about 20 grand. That worked out perfectly, because depositing every penny into my bank account pushed me above 4 million dinks, earning another 1,000 permit points, and therefore allowing me to pick up a second irrigation license for more advanced sprinklers. It also made the agricultural vehicle license available. Oh my goodness, I need so many more permit points. When we were at the bank earlier, I withdrew $500,000 because I wanted to spend 440 grand on the next house upgrade. This level wasn't in the game when we were on Bush Lagoon, so I was curious what it would look like, and aside from needing to saw up some planks, I already had the materials for it. I finished all the smelting that evening, then got to work on the materials for the fish pond. Not ideal being 7 pounds short, but going out on the boat at night did make life easier because the sparkles showing where to harvest them are far more visible. Well, maybe that's just me, but either way, I managed to get all the ones I need before the end of the day, even getting it built before bed. It's going near the South Bridge. It's bigger than I was expecting, and I love the look of it. It'll get some new residents soon. Day 81 and my house extension's complete.
How? Well, that's a sight.
I collected the final homemaker milestone, so I guess that means our house is now the maximum size. I rearranged stuff another time because I couldn't be bothered to remove and replace all the items on top of these dresses. Whilst out looking for fish and bugs, I crossed paths with the town co-agent, so I tracked the recipe for the trike, and after doing a few more errands like selling off these shiny discs, I handed over the ingredients to become the proud owner of a new set of wheels. This thing is freaking adorable. I couldn't help taking it for an immediate spin in town, or many spins, but I'll be honest, this is just for fun. It is not going to become a preferred mode of transport or anything. Given that we're just a few days away from spring, I wasn't going to plant anything else till the turn of the season, but I had a daily permit point task to plant stuff, so I bought a handful of sugarcane from rain, which grows in every season. Very grateful that I had some carrots that I hadn't harvested yet for space. The island had been enjoying some peace for a while, but it looks like that was now over with the return of an alpha croco. Gotta make sure I get a photo of it first. Bit terrifying seeing it charge at me through the lens though. Getting into the swing of combat in this game meant it didn't take me long to poke all the air out of it, then I rewarded myself with some shopping at Melvin's, before informing him of the good news and claiming the bounty which more than paid for those purchases. That included some interior half-walls I found on the way out. It was dark by the time I finished my last villager task of the day, which is when I headed out for some treasure hunting. I still need lots of these parts over time for things like crafting more sprinklers. The advanced ones now water 2 tiles out instead of 1, but the ones I upgraded from this field here will have to go in their previous spots for now until all the crops have grown. My first task of the day was to fish on day 82, mainly for a jungle perch for Sally, our visitor of the day. I did also catch a barramundi though, who became our first resident of the fish pond. To get it to produce roe, I need to feed it a water critter, then I think it will have something for me tomorrow. With all the cow now ready, I had a big harvest on my hands, but with just 2 days left till spring, I didn't replant anything just yet. Yes, there are crops like wheat and sugarcane that will be fine for next season, but I want to maximise the space for potential newer crops. It was the best time to sort out the sprinklers though, but with the shape of this veggie garden, I'll probably always have to water some of the spots. I'd rather that than place extra sprinklers, especially because I'm going to need loads of them for my new tractor crop area. I put a water tank in what will become the middle, then carefully counted to make sure that the fences surround the 10 tiles out reachable by this water tank. Now I just got to fill the place with sprinklers. I don't have enough yet though. They're kinda resource heavy, and instead of cramming in crops in every tile, I went with having 4 quadrants with 4 sprinklers in each one. I went to check with Franklin about the tractor materials, but first I got distracted by some other stuff. There were some better crafting stations now, a solar panel to speed up machines, and an auto sorter for items? I have no doubts they'd improve my life, but they take baconium and stuff which I don't have enough of. I did not forget to look at the tractor, but noticing the 20 iron bars, I knew I had nowhere near enough stuff. Lots of mining ahead it seems. Not tonight though. Tonight I went back out to the new crop field to clear the foliage and start flattening another raised section. When I took a minute looking at the field we just started setting up, it didn't really feel big enough for the tractor in my opinion, so I'm gonna double it. As far as I'm aware, this model of compactor can only do 1 level of dirt at a time, so this was gonna take an age. Not a job that can be completed in one single evening, but I got as much done as possible before the compactor required charging, and the villagers kept me busy for the evening anyway. Day 83 and I fancied a visit to the new to me mines level hot. I stuck emeralds in the lift, then in another near miss sprinted right out of there because I forgot my keys again. At least I didn't use up the pass and the emerald shards before I realised. I only have 5 keys, but they're gonna have to do. The heat from all the lava smacked me right in the face as I emerged from the lift. It certainly was hot. No false advertising here. I promise I didn't intend for this immediate dip though. One of the first things I found was a giant water bottle. I took a picture of it before doing anything else because I'd previously had a bulletin board request for this photo that I obviously couldn't do. I had to break it out of some packaging to pick it up, then my first instinct was to chuck it in the lava. It did exactly what I hoped for and turned it into walkable flooring. This was going to become key for navigating the place and doing damage to some fiery enemies like this slime here. It wasn't too long before I came across my first baconium ore chunk. This works like the emeralds and rubies in that you mine it as a chunk and carry it above your head. I obviously can't glide like that, so I'll have to use the water to form a path back to the elevator. That's when a new kind of enemy snuck up on me and set my precious shiny on fire. Just like myself, it then takes burning damage, and in the midst of all the panic, I just picked it up and ran. Come here, you little That was my loot. I needed that ore. How dare you destroy it? I will destroy you. I should probably also mention those ore chunks aren't exactly common. That sucks. I carried on exploring, trying to make the path as I went along this time, and also took out all these idiots guarding the water. Then that afternoon, I came across my first treasure room down here. These ones are pretty grand and heavily guarded. I wasn't expecting quite this many though, so I tested out splashing several of them with water. It kinda worked, but it brought out an angry mob. I was gonna need multiple bottles to take them out, but a few throws later, I got impatient and finished them off with my spear. I just couldn't get over how many of them there were. After clearing most of that initial crowd, I tried just ignoring them so I can actually get somewhere, and I swear, it feels like they're multiplying like bacteria. I did find my first locks to open. Both lead into this room with many more enemies and the loot we came for. I had no idea how to approach this at first, so I just tried leading everyone away from the chest into the next room where they all started setting each other on fire. But then I kinda got stuck by the locked door and got all turned around. So yeah, I kinda got cooked. This floor, not for the faint-hearted. I'm not giving up though. I took a slightly different route over and found another Baconium chunk. Maybe it is a good thing I died, or else I might not have found this. It took ages to make a path back to the elevator, but I wasn't throwing it in their hole. I wanted to break into it for its ore. Unlike the gems where you get 4 shards, I only got 3 bits of ore this time, and given that you need 5 for a bar, getting enough for all the improved crafting stations and tools is going to take a long time. I did then return to that treasure room I opened, determined to come away with the contents of the chest. This better be worth it. I tried just fully ignoring the monsters this time, aside from the 1 bottle I threw, then emptied what I could into my pockets and made my escape. It took a couple of goes to get everything from that one chest, but I wanted to ensure I could leave in one piece. There won't be a loot review for this day, because you've been seeing what's happening as we go, but one of the fun finds in there was a pickaxe axe. I was glad to find this because I seemed to have broken my pickaxe with the death. On my way back to the elevator, I found another Baconium chunk, getting 4 shards crushing it this time, and with that, I was very much ready to get out of here. That was rough. John's was closed by this hour, so I wanted to drop the water bottle nearby, ready for the morning, but it exploded, so now we'll never know its value. I know that some of you might have spotted this already, but I did finally notice not long before bed that I picked up a backpack, or a swag pack. It's basically a wearable chest for extra space. All of our struggles today, officially worth it. On day 84, I brought a Dagwood dog to Sheila in her tent to chip away at her friendship, then bought another stone grinder and furnace from John to bump up the mining related production. Speaking of which, I obviously didn't get any ore I need for sprinklers yesterday, so after waiting a million years for my helmet to recharge, I spent my afternoon in the deep mines. Let's see how much I come home with. We only had a few keys, so there's not much in the way of treasure, but we did find 151 copper ore and 86 iron ore. That's some decent sprinkler progress. That one treasure room though, not much to see really. That miner's hat I've had for ages, so that's not new, and yeah, not much really worth a mention. Oh, the elevator. In there, I brought up 4 rubies and a fossil. John's is closed tomorrow though, so it's going to be a couple of days before we'll see the money from them. Day 85 began with tilling the fields for the new season, in between smelting yesterday's ores. With some time left over after that before rain was ready to open, I hunted for any new season creatures, and it didn't take me long to gather several new catches. I returned to town for seed shopping, grabbing a mixture of potatoes and onions. It was then over to the town hall to get the last animal handling license to one day raise some pleeps. Then one quick journal daily task later, I had enough permit points for the next animal processing license to turn pleep wool into cloth. The rain falling was then my cue to get these crops planted, and by this point most of my ores were done, so I could craft a bunch more sprinklers. I still didn't have enough to fill the giant crop field, but 3/4 of it is done now. Then I rushed through the tilling to take advantage of the rain for planting. Unfortunately though, despite the hundreds of seeds that I bought, they weren't quite enough. Rains is closed now, and I didn't have enough of anything in storage. I did, however, make sure to get the 2 coffee plants situated in the smaller garden. I then made loads of cement ready to build a silo later, and while stocking up on quartz for it, I searched the land and sea for new bugs and fish. Whilst I didn't get anything new this evening, I did catch another yellowfin tuna. When I got back to town, the silo got its place by the animal pens, and once I fill it up, it'll automatically dispense food to nearby feeders. So much easier. Then, instead of selling that tuna, it took up residence in the fish pond. No idea how it fit, but if it works, I guess. On day 86, I found the first spring flowers sprouting up around town. These are only going to be around this season, so I need to take advantage of their short appearance. Sally was the day's visitor, and all she wanted was to sell me a few tin bars. A simple request that I could not refuse, and now, it was my turn to sell stuff. To John, I mean. The Nautilus fossil was 118 grand on its own, that is wild. Then the 4 rubies were altogether another 288. I checked in with Franklin after I deposited most of my money to the bank to look up the requirements for a blast furnace because I can't smelt the baconium ore into bars without this upgrade. Problem is, I literally have no iron bars left, and not enough copper, so this'll have to wait. I had other things to do anyway, like rid the island of this alpha jackaroo, and today it actually brought a friend. There were 2 of them to fight, and even though I took a beating from the second one, I was confident I could just push through those last hits, which thankfully worked out. Added another win to the tally right after that by catching a brand new bug, and once I was satisfied with my efforts patrolling the island for more new species for the day, I headed back to town to collect my rewards. It was kind of funny having 2 identical conversations with Milburn, one after the other though. That evening, I finally remembered to harvest my big fruit orchard for the first time, and it was on this very day that I really wish I had that hardback from Franklin. I'm nowhere near able to afford it, so I'm still having to pick up all this fruit by hand. That upgrade is a long way off, and I did make sure to grab the coconuts on the other side of town too. It had warmed up enough on day 87 for me to want to change into a more springtimey outfit. It's a dress, but it still provides a little bit of warmth. I wanted my coffee plants to grow faster, so I tried using some of the Instagrow from an earlier request, but even in using quite a lot of it, it did grow, but it didn't sprout any coffee beans, so I guess we'll have to see in the future when it finally decides to produce. I then decided I want to reduce the amount of crops over here now that we got the giant fields, so I moved the fences to reclaim some of this area, intending to use it for future crafting machines. Erwin got some scones for his birthday. Deadly? They can't be that bad, Oh, it's a good thing. Right. Okay. You know what is deadly though? This alpha bush devil. I will not be letting this thing crash the party. And just like the last alpha battle, I found a new bug right after. I guess it brings me luck or something. And so that afternoon, I thought it might be a good idea to put that luck to use for some treasure hunting, stocking up on loads of parts by the time I got home for the night. First thing on day 88, I took Sheila's breakfast order of some jam toast, and when running out to fetch it, I ran into Rain and showed her a photo of a snowman she asked for. I handed her an absolute masterpiece and got nothing but pennies in return. I guess she just doesn't appreciate real art. In return for Sheila's breakfast, I got a pasty which felt much more fair. Then I sold off some jam and stuff to John to fund another mine pass because I was headed for the deep mines today. I was mainly here for copper and iron again for the future furnace upgrade and more sprinklers, but I did have 16 keys with me, so let's see what I brought home late that night. Let's start with the rubies for a change. Only 3 of them this time, so it's good, but not my best. But onto the rest of it. It's a good thing I had the backpack today. First of all, with 251 iron ore and almost 200 copper ore, I smashed the assignment for those things. The copper says 157 because I did already start smelting some before I opened my inventory. I was also smashing up some abandoned cars for their parts, some of which are needed for sprinklers too. But now let me show you the backpack. I had to find a screenshot from the next day because I forgot to even look in it that night, but look at all these extra bits I could bring home. I now have a second miner's helmet and a moose saddle, which I have fond memories of from Bush Lagoon. Those rubies gave me another 181,000 dings, and then I sold off the extra tools and weapons, with a few more I dug out of storage, for an additional 44 grand. Then for the final part of the selling spree, I gave Franklin the next 15 shiny discs for 146 grand. Even then, I didn't have enough cash in my pocket for what I wanted, so I made a withdrawal from the ADM and came back to Franklin to order that blast furnace. With one of my own furnaces now on a break, I bought another from John because I was still very much working through these ores. Today felt like a good one to get Nyx a friend. My next baby wombat is not Jaden, but Jade Dairy. She's still cute even if the name kinda isn't. Still staying close to keep smelting stuff, I managed to get the last 4 sprinklers down for this initial bigger crop field. Then I popped back out there a little later to continue the job of flattening the hill we started on some time ago. On day 90, I collected my beefed up furnace from the mail and got my first baconium bar smelting. The green glow was a little ominous, so I thought I should keep my distance and hung out by the barbecues instead to cook up some croco meat. Not too much going on this day that weren't farm chores and other dailies, but I did make my first cheese maker now that Nyx was producing milk. And I caught my first grasshopper which I donated to the museum. Then, once I finished my to-do list that evening, I began work on the tractor field extension, which did require more dirt compacting where I guesstimated wrong. Though since I didn't have a water tank ready, I did make sure to mark out where to line it up with on the fencing. I had many onions to harvest on day 91, but before starting the harvest on the bigger field, I tried to take as much advantage of the sprinklers sprinkling and speed tilled the new area so that they'd start off watered. I did a bit of shopping at Melvin's whilst waiting for the seed shop to open and bought a couple of new potted plants, and then bought the first agricultural vehicle license since I still don't have a tractor for my tractor field. Rain was selling green bean starters for the first time today, a regrowable crop a whole week into the season? Come on, Rain! I still bought some though, I'll need them for ingredients. There weren't any other seasonal crops this time, so I had to settle for a buttload of sugarcane seeds. Before going out to plant those, I picked up the crafting lab deed again from Fletch so I can move Franklin's lab up this cliff. I think I talked about doing this ages ago, but here I am finally getting around to it in the last few weeks of the year. It took a couple of in-game hours to get all those seeds down, then I stayed in my house the rest of the day to redecorate, including putting up some of these divider walls. As for the rest of the house, it's still very much a mishmash of all the different pieces I've accumulated over time, but you know what? I don't think I'm mad at this final result. On day 92, one of my 2 coffee plants had fruited. The fact that it's only one suggests that maybe I didn't use enough Instagrow, and I certainly didn't use an equal amount. Annoying, but fixable using another pack of it. I caught my first golden perch for the museum on the way to seek out Jimmy's boat for this rainy morning, and the first thing that caught my attention was this ball. An imposter ball? You can become anything? 20,000 permit points for that privilege? I'm good for now. I brought some onions and some old wheels with me to sell for almost $500,000, then with Sheila as the day's visitor, I brought a very easy meat on a stick for her. Nice to feel like I'm actually getting somewhere with her friendship now that she's realised we're much more capable of simpler recipes on Sprout Shores. I've been checking the animal shop for Pleep most days recently, and today was the first time I actually found one for sale. Since they produce wool, we're playing with sheep-themed names. Armani didn't give me much to work with though, so it'll have to be. I worked on the materials for her sleeping den while smelting the last few ores, though at this point I'm only ever using the blast furnace because for iron, copper and probably tin, the blast furnace gives you 2 bars instead of 1, for the same 5 ore. My other furnaces are obsolete now, until I can upgrade them too. Then placing the den here, I'm pretty sure it looks entirely different to the ones we had on Bush Lagoon. This is cute. I then edited my house a bit because I forgot to utilise the half walls, but I do wish we could maybe put different wallpapers on different walls. Like to me, the starry one just looks a little bit odd on the dividers, so I changed it to the light blue one. I think it's sort of giving a beach house vibe. Then, for the evening, I cut down more trees to restock wood for later projects. On day 93, I crafted a few extra crab bots. Not so much for the fish because there's a chance we can catch old keys this way too, but I do place them by the fish pond because I can use the crab pot fish to feed the fish pond. Selling some jam and some spare items to John got me another 57,000 dinks, but I immediately spent half of it on this exorbitantly priced watermelon. Why would I take up this offer? Well, firstly the permit points for completing a request, and secondly because I didn't have any watermelons and it'll be good to keep one on hand for a future request. It would have given friendship too, but I'm already besties with John. I had $500,000 to deposit into the bank, and I thought I would chat to Melvin for a bit to keep him company.
You know what I like about you, Emma? You're not great at anything. Not good even, but just out there, day after day, just having a go. Giving it a shot. Marvellous.
Well, that would teach me to be sociable, jeez. Franklin cheered me up though by offering 9 old keys for purchase. I panicked here because I just deposited most of my cash, so I didn't have enough, but if I accept the offer, I can pop away to make the withdrawal and return to him to make the trade. So yeah, if you ever run into this scenario, say yes anyway, or the offer will be gone. When taking the orders from Clover today, I couldn't help noticing this Kato shirt on the way out. As someone who enjoyed Console Kato's content, I just had to have this shirt to display in my house. She has lots of lovely cozy stuff to enjoy by the way, you should definitely check her out if you aren't already familiar. I mined on the surface whilst working on the bugs and fish for various villagers. Then when I got back to town, I withdrew more of my dinks to make my first ever wish at the well here. Kind of ignore this till now because a wish costs 150 grand. There are 6 wishes to pick from, but this time I went for the dangerous wish. Doubling the enemy damage might be an odd first choice, but they do also drop more loot, and the real reason I did this was to make the hunters appear more frequently. Not just any hunter, I'm talking about Ted Selly. I've also been keeping my eyes and ears out for him, and you might remember from Bush Lagoon how terrible of a time I had finding him, but this way he has chances to visit on more days of the week, and I really want to meet him before the end of the year. I dropped him my money, and it will take effect tomorrow. In addition to finishing more villager tasks to pass that time, I went diving for water critters because no doubt I have new ones to find for the museum. Speaking of museum donations, I got a letter from the bug tipster the next morning alerting me to an unidentified bug in the pine forest in the morning, so that'll be my first task of the day. I was out of my book for the whole morning, and if it was there, it definitely hid well from me. No new bug here today, but I did still have 3 donations for the museum, the critters I went diving for last night. I bought a load more onion seeds from Rain before harvesting all the potatoes in the big field, but annoyingly I did not buy enough onion seeds to replant. You thought I would have learned last time. Thankfully, I did have enough wheat seeds to fill the gaps. Then for the rest of the day, I rode around on the motorbike hoping to meet Ted Selly, not realising he definitely wouldn't have been there today. It's a Tuesday, and his usual visit is a Saturday, but with the Dangerous Wish active, he can also visit on a Sunday or Wednesday too. So yeah, an entire evening gone to waste there really. On day 95, I successfully located the new bug just outside a pine forest, a ladybird hanging out on a tree. I couldn't believe I forgot about these till now, but it was this day that I remembered to try stealing some of the moo eggs that are here for spring, which you can sell on John Scales for extra cash. I got some permit points in there too. Once I sold a few of those off, I was back on my bike to try and find Ted again. No luck again today though, and I wanted to get back that evening anyway to collect the wattle tea from the billy cans. I remembered making some wattle brew on Bush Lagoon, but I don't remember needing to make the tea first. Whenever the brews are ready, I probably won't be selling them because they're good for mining buffs. Then for my last job that night, I finished up the materials needed for another water tank ready for the tractor field expansion. On day 96 I crafted a bunch of hedges, then never placed them? I think I got distracted by Sheila's visit here, but she had a hankering for some scones today, and I didn't think I had the high quality milk for it yet, so I had to turn down her request so as to not lose the friendship. I got the water tank built out in the field, even if I didn't have the sprinklers for it yet, then bought a second pleat from Erwin. I've well and truly lost any ability to name things at this point, so I couldn't think of a sheep-themed alternative close to the name Heidi. All I could think of was Woolly. I mean, at least one letter is the same. Instead of immediately building her a bed, I crafted a tool rack, which was an item completely new to me. This is a working storage place for our tools, but I think you can technically put other things in here too. The fun part though is that the first 3 tools will be displayed. Even though I was planning to craft the new pleat den today, I first went out on the bike to check off villager dailies and look for Ted Selly again, but I still hadn't gotten the right days down, so I'll be wasting time here and there for this one for some days to come. I did find a new bug to donate though, along with a white yabby I forgot to donate on an earlier day, and it turns out by this point I kinda forgot about building Woolly's house. I am not proud of this oopsie. It wasn't until lunchtime the next day that I did anything of note really, and that was to make a few more kegs since those wattle brews take a few days to process. 1 keg is simply not enough. I also shopped at Melvin's for the first time in a while. I just had to have this dainty bedside table, and another cool thing was this archway that works like the interior walls in the house. I did buy one, but I don't think I ended up using it. I went out in the rain for a mix of chopping wood and wildlife hunting. Why not throw in a bit of bug catching too, in a complete inability to focus on a single task today? It doesn't end there though. I tracked down a moo that evening to put that saddle to good use. This mount is so much fun, but not one I utilise often. I kinda just hang out with her for a bit, but for the most part, she'll just be chilling in town. Day 98 and Jimmy parked his boat nice and close to town this rainy morning. I had 900 or so crops for him, for which he offered 1.1 million dinks. Yes, please. I can't deposit it into the bank today though because it's closed for the weekend. Sally was our guest today, with a simple request for some palmwood. I really didn't need this other beak in return though. I couldn't help but notice that our town moo was wandering around through the day. I was worried about her getting too far away or being munched on by a predator somehow, so I built her a pen to chill just behind John's store. Hopefully this is enough to ensure her safety. I grilled up various meats that afternoon for a quick and easy food supply, then once it passed 3 PM, I was back out on the motorbike for another Ted search. I even resorted to taking the rowboat out to some of the more remote outer islands on the map, but this hunter just doesn't want to be hunted it seems. I'm gonna be honest, day 99 is mostly a train wreck. I started by reducing the smaller crop garden, once again slowly reclaiming the area in favour of space for future crafting machines, then worked on my animal chores. That might seem pretty normal, until you see that I didn't realise that the spring bug catching competition was today, and was already underway. I got signed up 30 minutes late, so I was already at a disadvantage, but I do enjoy a good bug catching sesh, so I ran around frantically with my net for most of the day, swiping everything in sight. I got back to the tent that afternoon with just a couple of minutes to spare, but I hit the wrong button on the book, and instead of logging my score, I viewed the leaderboard, causing me to miss the deadline. No trophy for me. I didn't even know my score. The bug catching wasn't for nothing though, because I could sell them all to Julia at a premium, receiving 155 grand for my efforts, so that's something. I mentally prepared myself for another evening of not finding Ted Selly, but as soon as I teleported to the South Tower, I heard that glorious sound. He's gotta be close by. I found him just across the river from me, and instead of introducing myself, I whipped out my camera and gave him a full-on photo shoot. I just had to capture this moment I've been waiting for so long. He didn't seem fazed by my pretty intrusive behaviour, and I did eventually put the camera away and say hello. Whilst he can't permanently move to town, we can still befriend him. Aside from this, the other reason I wanted to meet him was to check out his craftable weapons. There's some unique pieces in here, some of which I can only dream of getting the materials for, but the main one that caught my eye that seemed pretty much within reach was the battle broom. At 14 attack damage, it's better than my spear, and the materials are simple enough. So I tracked the list, gathered everything I needed, then returned to him after dark to craft that broom. Perfect for cleaning up my enemies. Gonna save it for a day I really need it though, because something tells me it just might not be all that durable. I should also mention you can sell animal drops to him for a lot extra. Cooked prime meat in particular is a great one, but this isn't something I did on this occasion. Now that I've met Mr. Selly for the first time, I wanted to change the wish to a peaceful one. He won't be able to come back with this active, but I really wanted this because it stops the wildlife attacking me unless I hit them first. I've been mostly avoiding the mines since the dangerous wish had come into effect, because I didn't want to bear the brunt of the double damage, so I was really hoping this peaceful one would make me feel less fragile on the lower levels. That's where I was headed for day 100, but not before donating my riches to the bank. You know, just in case I still die. You do lose quite a lot of money when that happens. I've lost count of how many times this is now, but once again I almost forgot to bring my keys with me, and given that it's been a while since we've gone underground, I amassed 35 keys teeming with loot potential. That loot was to be found in the Undergrove. It's been a long time since we visited this floor now. The grubs did not care in the slightest about my peaceful wish, but thankfully my trusty broom made quick work of them. Interestingly though, the blooming frillies were no longer aggravated by my presence. These are the main threat to me down here, so at least these are maintained for now. The same cannot be said for the snappy plants. I guess it's because they're not animals. This one almost ended me, emphasis on almost, but let's see in our loot review if my peaceful wish helped me come home with more valuable goodies. I absolutely forgot to take a look in my backpack till the next day, so I've just inserted it here this time from the next day. The Undergrove is more about the chest than mining for me, and down here I found statues for the frilly and the doggo for the town. I also got a whole copper sprinkler, 2 more moo saddles, and a moo whistle, which are all fun. Then the 36 lanterns I collected for whenever I next need more lighting. In the backpack, there's also a diving helmet, which I just found out lets you swim on the surface without using stamina. I literally didn't use this at all. You'll also notice my broom is in there looking worse for wear. It's as brittle as I expected, but I think this was more down to the sheer quantity of grubs I had to sweep to death. I'll be saving this for a repair. The ruby shard I think I found in the chest. Definitely did with the 6 Baconium ore. Those are a score, but the 9 emerald shards are from crushing 2 chunks, along with a mishap I don't want to talk about. But in addition to those, I brought 3 more emerald chunks in the elevator to sell off. I took care of Sally's request for furniture first thing on day 101. That prime roast will be handy for another future mining expedition. Then I sold my 3 emerald chunks to John for a tasty profit of 213 grand for all of them. That gave me enough dinks to push my bank balance into its 5th million, so I could claim another 1000 permit points from the journal milestone. That completely emptied my pockets of cash, so I brought 5 shiny discs to Franklin to give me 48 grand, most of which was immediately spent on a repair kit and the vine wall crafting blueprint. I was putting out the lanterns along the path to the tractor field when I noticed that the onions were ready for lift off from the soil, but before starting that job, I ran off to the greenhouse to buy more seeds to replace them with. I got over 500 onions from this harvest, which will be saved for next time Jimmy sails over, and for once I actually did buy enough seeds to refill the sprinklers. I then had one more other seed to plant, a lily pilly seed. I got this from the Undergrove yesterday, and it just grows a little decorative tree in a couple of days. I was freed up for the evening to help the townies after that, and one of Fletcher's tasks was to trade any piece of clothing for her orange shirt. I don't really care about the shirt, but I thought she might do with the spare green cardigan dress I had, because hers is looking a little bit worse for wear. On day 102, I struggled through harvesting my first green beans through all the sugarcane. My errands from my villagers took up a lot of my day, being sent in a lot more directions than usual, but in between those, I used up some of my green beans, cooking up a supply of prime roasts for riskier mines levels. Then once I finished everyone's chores, I wound down with some treasure hunting, mainly searching for shiny discs and old keys. Day 103 began with roasting up some freshly harvested coffee to prep them for the biddy can, before sharing some of my fairy bread for Sheila for breakfast. Over 12 grand for a slice, that must have been a really good batch I made. I wanted to order the tractor from Franklin today, but I only have about half the iron. Better get myself down to the mines then. I only have 6 keys today, so I can't get too distracted by treasure rooms, but I learned a little tip just before this, that if you have a mining helmet, where I used to bring multiple helmets, I didn't need to do this. Instead, if you just carry some Spinefex resin, it consumes some now and again and keeps it charged. Did I get as much iron as I needed this day? Let's find out in the end of day loot review. Obviously not a huge variation of items today because of my lack of keys and focus on ores, which, speaking of, I got 152 iron ore, which equates to about 60 bars when I used the blast furnace. Enough for the tractor, and several sprinklers after too. I got a similar amount of copper as well, and I did also find a perfect ruby in one of those chests. Super rare and valuable. I'll be keeping hold of this for now for late game crafting recipes. I crushed 1 chunk of ruby to get shards for a future undergrowth visit, then for my sellable chunks I found 5 of them today. I'm happy with this haul. On day 104, I got this letter from the fish tipster. An undiscovered fish in the unknown, potentially found all day. Wow. So informative. That's some really life-changing information there, thank you. It wasn't long that morning before I had everything ready to commission the tractor from Franklin. But yeah, don't worry, the tractor field will in fact have a tractor before the end of the year. I'm still a while away from unlocking all its attachments though, especially since I spent 9,000 permit points today maxing out my commercial license. At a boost of 15% on my sales, this is going to help me with all aspects of my life on Sprout Shores. I wanted to activate that boost before selling off the 5 ruby chunks, which netted me a total of 458 grand. That's almost half the tractor paid for from these. I had to grab another basic axe whilst I was in the store. Even though I don't need these for myself, I needed to craft 2 copper ones to show to Melvin for his town board request. I would say give to him, but like last time, there's something about these requests where they don't actually take them and they pay you anyway. I stuck around home for a while just smelting ore and crushing stones. All that cement was to craft some gravel pathways, which will be used in the tractor field. I didn't place them today though, I still had some more smelting to get through, and an orchard full of fruit to harvest. I was out in the big field early the next day, pulling out my tractor from my pockets to unbox over here, and I had to give it a new paint job too. The unplanted areas got really overgrown throughout the spring. I used my chainsaw to speed through clearing it, then placed my gravel paths in those gaps which made things look a lot neater. After placing all of those, I had 7 sprinklers to go to call this field complete. It was the quartz I had to gather for that, catching anything I needed for my villagers whilst I was at it. Then, when I got back to town, I crafted up the 3 more sprinklers I had the resources for. Just one little section of the tractor field remains. I could then finish off any remaining tasks on my daily to-do list, and one of them involved putting my photography skills to the test again by capturing a jackaroo and a jellyfish in the same photo. Thankfully, Clover was sufficiently impressed to pay me for one of those snaps. On day 106, I recovered enough of my courage to attempt today in the lava levels in the mines. I was very specific about forming a path back to the elevator as I went along, and this time, when I found the big treasure fortress, I just ignored the enemies for the most part and led them away from the loot instead. It's just a case of grab it and run. Even though I did spend a good portion of the day on fire, I did get back to the elevator in one piece, so let's have a look at that loot review. My pockets are definitely looking kinda sparse thanks to the amount of time I had to spend dropping water into lava to create a walkable route, but I got a few chunks worth of baconium ore, a perfect ruby and emerald, 2 whole iron sprinklers, and that spear. Well, you'll see how awesome this is later. I also found 4 crafting blueprints in there. I had no idea I could find these as treasure, but here we've got a hardwood tool rack, a marble pillar, a marble fence, and a palmwood ladder. That went so much better, but it's clear that the baconium ore grind is gonna be a painful one. On day 107, the onions had grown on the tractor field, so it was time to put my trusty new vehicle to work. It was very satisfying, and made quick work of the harvest. I baked a fresh loaf of bread to bring to Sheila, and I seem to have got so good at baking that she actually wanted to stay. I grabbed the tuck shop deed from the town hall, which at 750 grand will be our most expensive build yet. I decided to locate it by the beach north of the animal area, excited by the prospect of a beach restaurant vibe. Checking on the materials however, the kegs hurt, but I do get it. The 3 bundles of brews though, oh my goodness. An immediate panic washed over me that I might not be able to get this one constructed before the end of the year, which is just 5 days away. Rain opened up shop by that point, so I tried to take my mind off things with a large purchase of sugarcane seeds, then harvested the crops closer to my house. With this area clear, I picked up the sprinklers, some of which got used to finish off the tractor field, rather than using some of my precious resources. I did have a few onion seeds left to plant, which it may have seemed late for this, but the crops do keep going for the first couple of days into a new season, so they should be fine. I then got to tilling all the new bits, still by hand unfortunately. I still only have a license to use my tractor to harvest. I've not been able to get the other attachments just yet, but the biggest problem was that I only had 2 iron hose and ran out of repair kits, so my second one broke painfully close to the end. I didn't have time to dwell on that though. I had 500 sugarcane to plant, and once that was done that night, I did end up returning the 3 leftover sprinklers to their old home. I don't mind a bit of watering in this area, I just don't want to do all of it. I didn't plant anything new here though, I'm waiting for the new season for that. Then, just before turning in for the night, I made a new wish at the fountain. A fortuitous wish this time, to make rare occurrences a little more common. The peaceful wish just wasn't helping me the way I was hoping. On day 108, I brought 8 more shiny discs to Franklin to reclaim some of last night's wish money before venturing further out to take a photo at this location for a bulletin board quest. I then tried to work on the tuck shop materials some more, the most difficult item being the jelly brew for me. You might be able to tell me of a better way to get the jelly, but the only way I could think of at the time was luring the jellyfish close to shallower water so I could prod the life out of them with my spear. Given that each brew needs 10 jelly, this was about as tedious as you might expect. My pleeps were now old enough to produce wool, so I crafted a couple of looms to turn that into cloth, something I've been waiting for some time. Whilst that was processing, I headed back out for a battle with an alpha croco. I don't remember inviting you to our island, get out of here. With that threat removed, I told Clover it was safe to come out of the bushes, and she even paid me for a job well done. The fight kinda tired me, so I will be having an early night, but I did get out on the bike again first to check the local area for some easy ores. Goes without saying, I didn't find much out there, so day 109 was down in the deep mines gathering more. I was back to being interrupted by the animals down here, but that lava spear causing a little chain of eruptions practically melted every living thing it touched. Bit more durable than the broom too. This takes the top spot for my favourite weapon. I was hopeful that it would give me more time to focus on mining, so let's see how that impacts our end of day loot review. My top priority was iron ore today, and whilst I did pick up some copper ore, at 232 iron, I think this trip more than lived up to its expectations. I did smash up a few cars and bins down there for treasure parts, but you might have noticed I didn't bring any keys with me. I promise you I didn't forget them this time. I intentionally wanted to stop myself getting distracted from the ore hunt by all that loot. I did find 4 rubies to satisfy my inner loot goblin though. On day 110, I stuck by my blast furnace for some time to smelt up the iron. Those poor regular furnaces really aren't getting any use anymore till I can upgrade them. The profit from the 4 rubies added up to 359 grand, with the heaviest of the day covering 113 grand on its own. Then, in the midst of prepping more items for the tuck shop, I went and upgraded both my cooking and my crafting tables to the advanced versions. They are not cheap to make, and that is what I was waiting on the cloth for, but with these I can now craft and cook using items from nearby storage. No more fishing things out of my chests. I love the added convenience. Back to the tuck shop project. I donated everything I had that afternoon, including 2 of my own kegs, so I didn't have to craft more of them, but now all that stands in the way is one single jelly brew, which is currently, well, brewing. Not long now, hopefully. Since I'm over here collecting the animal products for the day, I'm ashamed to admit I still haven't picked up on the fact that I've forgotten to build a second pleat den till now. We can worry no longer. Willy now has a proper place to sleep after 2 entire weeks of being here. Definitely felt a lot better getting on with other tasks now that I know she's getting a good night's sleep. The next morning, I was worried seeing Sheila was in town that she might have come down here to demand a progress update on her building. I didn't mention it at all, and neither did she. She just wanted some spag bol, which I had stored up and ready for her. Hopefully, this will show her that her tuck shop will be worth the wait. Lucky for her, the final jelly brew was ready to deposit, which means her place will have its grand opening on the turn of the new year. For this day, I mostly just worked on gaining more permit points, and this purchase of a toilet helped towards it, as it was one of my journal dailies to purchase some furniture. Good if I ever remembered to build myself a bathroom. With all those ticked off, I was out at the shores with my metal detector, treasure hunting for the rest of the day. I rolled out of bed to a very special notification on day 112, our final day. It's Sprout Shores Day. Everyone was out and about at the crack of dawn celebrating our little town. I had no idea this was coming, though it was such a lovely surprise. Gotta get the jam in first though. Fletch was putting on a snag sizzle to celebrate our whole year out here, and everything we've managed to build together. Well, I mean, I think we know who really put in all the work, let's be honest, but still, what a wonderful idea this festival is. The food already had me drooling, but I'm gonna have to wait till noon for it to be ready. I kept myself busy in the meantime by taking on this alpha bush devil. I couldn't risk my villagers becoming cooked, especially today of all days. This fight was so much easier with that lava spear because it meant I could still deal damage whilst getting away and dodging. I didn't even need much in the way of food buffs this time either. Being a festival day, nobody wants to talk about any sort of requests, so no bounty for me, but Milburn did give me a balloon for today. Whilst waiting for lunch to cook, why don't we take it with us on a tour of the town? Starting from the north, we have the tuck shop currently under construction. Following the nearby path, we come to our animal areas with Irwin's shop. I don't think I touched on this, but I just adore the way that animals can have different colours and patterns. I don't remember that being a thing yet on Bush Lagoon, but I could be wrong. Just over the bridge, we come to the main island of our town, passing by our original littler orchard near my storage and crafting zone, which at the moment is still kind of a mess of chests and machines, but I just kind of got used to where everything was. On the other side of the path, we have what's left of the original crop gardens. I would quite like to make this space into a more organised storage and machine area now that we have the tractor field to farm for stuff. Up the stairs just beyond that, we have this unfinished raised area with Franklin's lab. Definitely need more decor around here, but I do love the view from this cliff overlooking the whole town. Back down the stairs, we pass by the telepad to come to the museum. This main path loops all around the main buildings, and in the middle we've got our wish fountain. You might have noticed over time I've been scattering potted plants around this central bit, just wanting to keep some of the more natural look and feel. Unfortunately, I think all the wildflowers from spring will be disappearing with the new season. In the background here, you can see the very familiar town hall with John's Goods and the visitor site either side. These are all a little bit cramped together at the moment in my opinion. We then come around to the bandstand which you saw this morning, and that's just across from my fully upgraded house. Here's a quick look at the interior, but I'm a little bit embarrassed at my lack of furnishing skill, so I'm only giving you a quick little look and then we're out. At the side of my house we've got the jam production, followed by a currently unoccupied doggo house just next to Rain's greenhouse. I really do just love how the greenhouse looks. The clothing store is the last building on this path. There's nothing beyond that bridge in the distance at the moment, I just didn't know what to put there yet. If we come back through the main town centre and head south, we have our fish pond and our crab pots. I've been tending to these, but I haven't really done much else with them. Then heading over the south bridge, we've got our less cozy buildings, so like the bank, the mine elevator, and you know I'm not sure the furniture store really belongs out here, but I figured the type of production from carpentry made sense near my quarry and all the wildwood. Backing onto Melvin's place, we have the bigger fruit orchard which supplies our jam production, then at the end of this unfinished path, we have our final stop, the big tractor field we've been working on slowly for so long. Sure, I could have squeezed in more sprinklers here, but I just love the way the gravel paths look. Still can't use all the attachments on the tractor, but hey, that's another thing to work towards, and that concludes our tour of Sprout Shores. The snacks were ready by then. It was cool to see a veggie option being offered here too. I couldn't decide which I wanted, so I asked Fletch to surprise me. I guess this is kind of like a twist on a hot dog. Either way, it looks delicious. I had to snap some pics to commemorate this day with our rare delicacies before they all get devoured. Then I got on with some random chores for the afternoon because the next event of the day won't be till nighttime. It's also a good opportunity to look at our pedia progress, starting with the fish. There's only 6 left, which no doubt with the fish book will be easy to cover off. The bugs I still have 5 left of to find, and actually I think these can be harder than the fish, because you can't always see them through the trees even with the book, but hopefully we can get these all soon too. I'll admit, I'll be slacking on the critters that we need to die for though. I've still got 10 left to find, and they're just harder without the books to help us, you know? Here's how the friendships are looking. Most of our residents are just about full. We still have Sally left to convince to move here, Ted we only met once, Jimmy we can't befriend, and Max and Julia only visit twice a year. We also can't befriend the town co-agent, but those 2 question marks? No idea who they are or how we can meet them. Perhaps that's a thing we can discover next year. I ran around town just enjoying the balloon till the sun went down, at which point Fletcher's surprise fireworks show began. Nothing like some New Year's Eve fireworks, especially quiet far away ones like these. I thanked Fletch for putting on this wonderful day, to which he also showed some gratitude for us taking this journey here together. I must thank all of you for joining me on this journey too. I know many of you have wanted me to revisit this game since our 200 days on Bush Lagoon, and I think now was the perfect time, after all the seasons got their updates, and of course with the crossover with Go-Go Town we just had. It's been amazing to see all the love that's been put into this game, along with the sheer amount that it's evolved since its release a couple of years ago. Leave a like on this video if you think I should continue this for a second year. We have a whole load of projects left to finish, and I believe there's some new stuff to discover, exclusive to the second year onwards. Let me know in the comments if you've been playing Dinkum too, and your favourite addition to the game. Thank you so much to my channel members, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!